here when we had this, right?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I was here in the olden days. All right, tonight's Oregon Town Board meeting will come to order. Jennifer, could you do a roll call, please?
Yep. Carl Walter.
Here.
Lori Fitzgerald. Here. Arlen Kai.
Here.
Steve Jernigan.
Here.
And Kate Gladdy. Here.
Item number 3, we've got a couple guests from the village, Martin Shanks and Phil Van Campen, talk about the senior center. Thank you. Take it away, gentlemen.
Thank you, Carl. As Martin outlined in his email to you, the village has done some thinking about the nature of the senior center and the agreement. And it's important for us to try and maintain a relationship, the towns in the village. The current contract about 10 years old, and it's probably a time to review that again. The village has taken a position that it's a village facility, it's a village employees, and so the plan that we're talking about tonight, and that the village would now take over complete responsibility for the employees, for the facility, for the upkeep of the facility, and just look at it from the sense of the village has this facility, the village runs this facility, the towns make use of that facility. So the plan that really Martin has put together really strictly looks at the cost for the towns from a usage standpoint. And I'll leave Martin and he can step in and go through this with you.
Remember, it's only my idea if you guys like it. So.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to mention that, sorry. I forgot to mention.
You guys have it all too on your.
Yeah, so you should have a copy of this. So thanks for inviting us to be here. Thanks for moving your meeting up 5:30.
Yes, thank you.
I have a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old, and my wife is very happy I'll be home for sleep routine. So that's good. So again, thanks for having us. So like Phil said, we talked last Monday as village board about senior centers, the senior center funding. And sort of the impasse that we're all at and how we can move forward. And so we put together a new idea, a new proposal that we're rolling out. We've been able to talk to the town of Rutland representatives. We just talked to the village of Brooklyn about an hour ago. And we've been getting some good feedback. And so we hope that what we're putting forward addresses some of the concerns that we've heard and can maybe provide some stability from a budgeting and just service standpoint for the next couple of years. So I think we talked about why we're here. I'm gonna go through just kind of a brief presentation. I think what we found on the village side when we started really talking about this was, for example, 3 of our 7 members just got elected and appointed this year. So they've only been on the board for 5-6 months. And so even they were like, well, what is the senior center? What does it do? And besides this complicated funding arrangement, intergovernmental arrangement. So we spent some time talking through just what is the context here, and helping everybody kind of get on the same playing field in terms of knowledge. And so with being invited here, I thought I'd just give the same opportunity to talk a little bit about that context with all of you. So start way at the beginning. So just older adult services, senior services in general. Everything that we sort of know today, Meals on Wheels, all these services that have been a part of our lives, most of our lives, if not all of our lives, really comes from the older Americans. It was first adopted at the federal level in 1965. So that brought what we know today as sort of the network and resources and funding that exists and that we exist within today. And when they're able to have a budget and keep their doors open, the federal government has continually reauthorized and funded it all these years for the past 40, 50, 60 years almost. And so that money comes from the feds down to the states. They have some formula that they use for distributing it. And then the states decide how they want to distribute it. And in Wisconsin, they allocate funding by counties. And after the adoption of the legislation in 1965, it kind of became sort of a little bit of a Wild West in the 1970s of distributing these funds to people and to organizations and to focal points. It was very fragmented, very decentralized, and the Village of Oregon, for example, had small nutrition programs, case management services that it had village residents in the 1970s. Ran that out of Village Hall. Of course, Diamond Village was very much more rural, 3,000 population at that time. And towards the late 70s, these service areas that we kind of know today started to sort of emerge out of this Wild West. There was some order brought to the Wild West. And the thought being that we need to provide some better equality of how these funds are being distributed, some better consistency of services. And these service areas were created largely around school district boundaries. So if you were an organization or a focal point that received grant money, you received it within, and you had to provide services within this service area, which was bounded by the school district. And so in 1980, our predecessors in all of our communities figured out and decided that, if we came together and we did this together, we could do something much greater than if we just let, say, the village do it on its own. And so in 1980, the senior center was actually created 43 years ago. They moved into the current building that they're in now. And from the beginning, from its inception, it's been this sort of joint effort. And that's pretty unique actually in Dane County. There's not quite anything quite like it. And of course, you can see in populations of all the communities that were in the Oregon School District, we were all pretty rural out here at the time. Oregon was even smaller in population than the town of Dunn at that point. So at that time, the agreement was made that the village as Phil mentioned, is going to be, the senior center is going to be owned. The service is going to be owned by the village. The building is owned by the village. The employees are village employees. Village admin staff does payroll, benefits, administration for the employees, we pay the bills, et cetera, et cetera. We're under the village property insurance, liability insurance, and so on. But from that beginning, even though the village was going to own it, all the communities were agreed that there was going to be a proportionate local funding arrangement for how this was going forward. And so, you know, two services that we have are not quite. This is kind of unique because it's not quite like some of the other things that we have that we share, which the Oregon Fire District, of course, is its own entity, it's its own thing. It's a thing that we all created together, and we own proportionate shares of that entity. So we have proportionate assets, and we contribute amounts, and it's kind of its own thing. Senior Center, of course, village owned, but receives funding. The library is another interesting example. So that's a village owned function like the senior center, but its funding arrangement sort of happens behind the scenes because there's the state has sort of stepped into that and said, this funding for public libraries is going to happen a certain way. And so that the way that happens is through county tax. So the county collects library taxes from town residents and then gives it to public libraries. So we receive an intergovernmental grant from the county based on some formula that they have. And so that sort of happens invisibly. We don't really see that. It just happens. So the senior center is sort of a different animal compared to these two. And from 1980, when it was created by the communities till 10 years ago, the funding arrangement was based on a per capita basis. It was just population. So we had net expenditures, less revenue, divided amongst parties, proportion based on population. So if town of Oregon was 20% of the total population, you pay 20% of the expenditure. And that's how it worked for 30 years. So things changed over that time. So from a service boundary area, of course, Fitchburg, they incorporated into a city. They decided in the mid-80s to create their own senior center. They left. They took their services, they took their grant funding, and they created their own thing. And that, of course, had reverberations. So at that time, there was a case management position that had to be eliminated. Revenue loss, but also service loss. So there was some rebalancing of the services. Early 2010s, town of Dunn left the service areas and they received their grant funded services from McFarland. And their contribution, they still provide a voluntary contribution, but it was cut in half at that time. And then of course their grant dollars that the village was receiving as part of the Dane County grant travels with them. So that went off to McFarland. So there was a kind of a revenue hole, right? And so what happened was the case management positions were reduced from full-time to 30 hours. There was an adult day program position that was open at that time that went unfilled for a few years as we tried to kind of recollect ourselves from a financial standpoint. Now, during that conversation, when Dunn was leaving the service area, and the conversations and negotiations that were happening between Dunn, McFarland, Village of Oregon, Dane County, at some point McFarland said, and this is another sort of interesting anomaly, but McFarland was providing service areas to the Stoughton portion of Rutland. For whatever reason, we're not exactly sure why, but Stoughton just either never serviced that portion or said at some point they don't want to. And so somehow McFarland ended up with the Stoughton portion of Rutland in their service area. And so when Dunn came over to McFarland said, we don't think we can continue to do the Stoughton portion of Rutland. Oregon, would you take that on? And we said yes. So we actually added service area at that time. And in 2019, their contribution doubled. So there's been sort of these odd things that have happened with the service area. So when Dunn was going through leaving the service area, there was also requests from partners in our service area that the current per capita arrangement wasn't working. There was a feeling, and of course Phil was on this side and he was probably leading the charge, right? That there was a sense that the village contribution did not really reflect the amount of use that the village really had of the senior center, that they should be shouldering a greater burden. And so there was a long, I think Phil, he told me 13 months negotiation on a new agreement. And so eventually there's a new agreement created, and that's the one we have now, which is currently in use this year. And that agreement has all the features that we're familiar with today. They started tracking usage. So there's a program at the senior center when you walk in, put your name in, you say where you're from, and you say what services you're going to use. And that's all aggregated and kept. And then that's used in the calculation for the formula on the agreement. There's this weighted service point system that happens in the agreement where certain services are seen as more cost intensive. So using the adult day program is much more costly than just coming to play cards. So there's this weighting thing that happens in the usage. And then there's this complex formula of 3 buckets: fixed costs, case management costs, and then sort of an everything else cost. And then there's budget is sort of divvied up into these different buckets. And so when we got to the end of that, it did what was set out to be achieved, which was shifting a greater burden to the village. And it made sense, it was negotiated, could justify it, people felt good about it. And for example, the town of Oregon contribution dropped, it was somewhere in the 50s pre-2011. And then when the new agreement went into place, it dropped down to 40,000 before starting to creep back up again. So the agreement, it's a unique, as I mentioned before, it's a unique arrangement. So it has its advantages, and of course it has its challenges. And I think when you look at the history of the senior center, I think it's fair to say if the arrangement didn't occur the way it did, senior center would look much different today. Because it just wouldn't simply have that base of partnership at its inception, and then the funding for 40 years that it's had. It either would have not came about at all and may have fallen into a nonprofit's hands or something, or it would just simply look a lot different than what we know. And so obviously when the senior center was created, I think our predecessors at that time understood that we can do something much greater if we all do it together. And because of that, the Oregon Senior Center has some pretty unique features when you look at other senior centers in Dane County. And probably the big sort of kahuna in all of this is the adult day. It's the only municipally owned state licensed adult daycare program in Dane County. And so I'm guessing that when the senior center was created and it didn't have the partnership that it did at the beginning, that probably wouldn't have happened, because it's a big cost, and because we had the economy of scale, it was able to. And even the city of Fitchburg, they still provide tiny contribution to the village, just so that they can have insurance that the village will keep that open for their residents, because they don't even have adult. So that's a big service that we provide, and an important service that we provide, and people have found value. The other thing with this is, no two senior centers focal points are exactly alike. Right now we have a senior center that is sort of a one-stop shop. It's from a user's perspective, of course, they don't see the complex behind the scenes. They just know they can go to this place and everything is under one roof, and that's easy for me. I understand that. And that's not always the case with every senior center in Dane County. One example, the Village of McFarland, their senior center is sort of branded around outreach. They don't have as much, they certainly don't have an adult day program, but they also don't have as much in the way of wellness or exercise classes or recreation. They do some, but they don't do as much variety and amount that the Village of Oregon does. And another piece of this too is local government control of the service. So some communities, their focal points became nonprofits, Colonial Club up in Sun Prairie. And so whether you see it as a value or not, there is still local control. There's still democratic control of the service. And there is some value. And something that Rachel mentioned to me the other day is UW Medical School actually uses the Oregon Senior Center to pilot older adult programs and services for wider use. So we've sort of positioned ourselves because we have the capacity and we have the resources. We can kind of be a testing ground for some cutting edge senior programs and services. Which of course may not have happened with the partnership that began at the beginning. So the other thing that this partnership has done is consistency. So we know that if the village is taking the county grant, we have an obligation to provide services to everybody in the service area. There's no obligation for towns to contribute. But the partnership has helped mitigate any feelings of unfairness, and it's maintained continuity of services throughout. And I think maybe a cautionary tale is the city of Verona, town of Verona. So city of Verona at some point did the math and they figured out we don't have to take the county grant. We can fund the city senior center without the county grant, and we're gonna make it be a city function. And they negotiated with town of Verona, and town of Verona felt, no, that what you're asking for is too much. And so city of Verona said, well, we don't have the county grant, it's just gonna be a city senior center. Sorry, town of Verona. Town of Verona went to Belleville, Sugar River. And they must have decided at some point, either one, the contribution that Belleville was asked for was either too much, or they weren't getting the level of service that they were getting from city of Verona at that point. So some combination of those two things must transpire, because in 2022, the town of Verona came back to the city of Verona and negotiated to be able to return their citizens back. Now the town of Verona is the second highest per capita contributor of senior center services in Dane County. So by having sort of this partnership from the beginning, it sort of avoided those kind of friction points and sort of unfairness. And for the users, it's maintained continuity. So if imagine you're senior in Verona, I get my services in the city. Now I gotta go to Belleville. Oh, a couple of years later, oh no, I have to go back to the city of Verona. So, for vulnerable populations, that can be really challenging. And this arrangement, we do get a lot of questions from cities and villages of how did you do that? How did you create this arrangement? How did you get your town partners to contribute fair share? And we're lucky and we can just say, well, it's always been. These communities started this way, began this way. The challenges though with this agreement is it has to be sort of a consensus, because if it's not, we start to have these feelings of unfairness. So, and if there's not a basis for the contribution, our reasoning behind the contribution, something that's justifiable, it gets political support, constituents can support it, understand it, it starts to create that tension of, is this fair? And, for example, our senior center usage tracking, there's transparency in that now. So we can look at those, and it's hard to ignore that now because it's out of the box. We know that town of Oregon residents make up anywhere from 15 to 20% of the different uses and services that are provided. And so if town of Oregon says we're going to provide a contribution that is 5% of the total expenses, well then why? we see that you're using 15 to 20%, but why are you just providing 5%? Well, maybe there is a good reason, and we understand what that reasoning is. And so there has to be sort of that consensus of, we got to here because we understand there's something that is bringing us to that point. And that outlier, of course, can present those problems because, the town of Rutland may look at it and say, well, if they're only given that much, then we're gonna give this much. And so now everything is arbitrary and just how we feel and all that sort of stuff. And that's hard to justify, especially if from the village side, the village residents says, well, why are you not making them pay your fair share? And it's like, okay, now how do we answer that? So ultimately, if there's reduced revenue, it just becomes a math problem, and it's hard to replace that. Fitchburg and Dunn example we gave, they left, there was some revenue that was lost, there were some adjustments in services and employees and hours and things like that. And of course, we're familiar with levy limits. Shared revenue has been difficult for 20 years, except for until this year, thankfully. But when there's a hole in revenue, it's hard to make it up because we don't have a lot of tools to make it up, all of us. And so if there's that hole, something has to break on the expenditure side. And you can see what happened with Fitchburg and Dunn with staff eliminations and reductions. And in the past, when we went to the current agreement, there was recognition of that amongst the partners, that it's very hard to find revenue and generate revenue in the local government funding world that we exist in right now. And so everybody came to an agreement that the village would take on more costs in 2012, 2013. But there was a recognition that we'll help the village take on this cost by phasing it in over 3 years. So there was a 3-year phase in where this sort of difficulty was acknowledged. And of course, you're all aware, Town of Oregon is the highest dollar contributor for senior center services in Dane County. And there's a reason, there's a story behind that, because it happened from the beginning, right? You were part of the creation of it. You were always part of proportionate sharing of it. And that's just how it grew from there. And that didn't happen everywhere else. And you look at your neighbors, town of Montrose and Sugar River and the town of Verona, we talked about that one. They're the 2 highest per capita, and then the town of Oregon is in 3rd. So yes, you're the highest dollar contributor, but again, there's sort of that story of how it happened, and there's a certain level of service that is being derived from that isn't being realized everywhere else. I'm not going to go through all of this, but the current agreement, I think we all understand, is really complex. It's really complicated. It's really confusing. It's very labor intensive administratively for tracking usage, but also then converting that into formulas. Formulas are verbalized in the agreement and can be really hard to read along. And then there's things in there where you look at it and no 2 people could say that they exactly understand that it's being interpreted the same way. One of the examples is employee salaries and benefits are going to be attributed in a certain way. Well, is FICA a benefit? Is that part of that definition? So we assume it is, but maybe it's not. Maybe somebody else would think it's not. So there's just a few things in there where you could look at it and there's some subjectivity to it. And I think we all recognize, those issues. But the agreement is still subjective and it achieved a desired end game. So there was a concern that the village wasn't shouldering its burden. There's a negotiation. They developed a method that got to a point where everybody could agree that this was what we were going to use. And that worked for 10 years. So the new proposal, which we have a written memo in front of you, I guess, formal written proposal in front of you. What we're proposing is to scrap the old agreement and just have simple 5-year agreement. freeze annual contributions at a flat amount for each of the 5 years. Contributions being relatively consistent with what has been seen for the last 4 years for communities. So you can see in the handout in front of you, 65,909 or 905 with the town of Oregon. Same service levels. So whatever services the village is providing to village residents will be offered and provided to the communities that would participate. We would just get rid of the kind of complexity and confusion and verbalization of how we arrived at that and all of that in agreement. It would just be very basic. This is your amount, this is the year you provide it, et cetera, et cetera. We proposed, and this is what's in the current agreement as well, but capital costs, village will take that cost on. We have a building project that we're hoping to do in the next few years. We understand it's going to be a village project. We're not asking anybody to contribute to it. We know that we have control over that, and we would not expect the town partners to contribute towards that. And same with any major capital projects, major maintenance of the existing building. So right now we do this sort of year-end reconciliation. We have a true-up in the current agreement where at the end of the year after the village audit, we if we're under budget, we give back some money proportionally. There's always a chance that it could be over budget and we may ask you for more money. I don't know if that's ever happened.
That's what I recall.
But it's in the agreement that the village can require more funding if it goes over budget. So what we're proposing in the new proposal is here's your dollar amount you give for 5 years. Village will keep that dollar amount and we're not gonna ask you for anything else. The village will cover anything that comes up. Boiler blows up next year, village is going to cover it, just pay you a flat dollar amount. We arrived at this amount using some usage statistics, some population. Probably the biggest thing that created what you see here is placing a value on village control. And so that kind of took away a chunk of money that would have been proportioned out to the communities. And we're saying, look, we understand that you don't really have a say in how this thing is run. We'll take on a greater proportion of the cost because we do have that control. With the 5 years, we made some budget assumptions. We want to try to respond to all the concerns that we did here. And it works. The 5 years for our projections work for what we think is going to be our village financial capacity. And so if you go to pages 4, 5, and 6, you can kind of see, kind of walks through sort of how we got through the amounts. Starting with the budget on that first page. And then on this page, showing that we use usage to attribute nutrition site, adult day program, and case management costs. And then you can see sort of that full service cost at the bottom where we're applying sort of a value to village control. And then using population for the rest of those costs. Then on the last page, you can see we kind of did like a 5-year projection using 3% increases each year. And then just using a 5-year average of those increases. And then at the bottom, you can see the contributions that are in the front page. So we knew we had sort of an end game because we knew the concerns that you had and sort of the dollar range that we think people would be generally comfortable with. And so we kind of worked the formula to try to get there, sort of how that probably happened 10 years ago. But it goes back to, we can justify, there's a way that we arrive at some number, and it's a number that the village board is comfortable with. We hope that the towns are comfortable with, and that it's explainable and it can be sellable to our constituents. It does remove the village staff administrative cost from budget. That's been a concern, it's been expressed. And it also includes town of Dunn. For a very specific reason, which is, they reached out to, Rachel to see if they could get access to the medical equipment loan closet. Oregon Senior Center, which they don't currently have because they're not, in the Oregon service yet. And so what this arrangement would do is try to kind of incorporate Dunn into it. Giving them access to the loan closet and then kind of locking that in for 5 years, just like everybody else. Now, they would still get their Dane County services from McFarland, but they would get access to all other services, plus this new service, the medical loan closet that they did. And they've been giving, I think it's 15,500 since they left the agreement 10 years ago. So they're being able to provide a couple thousand more to get the loan closet. So I just put in here the historical budget contributions from the town of Oregon. Now, these are the numbers that were asked at the budget process from the town of Oregon. Now we have that true up. So the way the true up works is send three bills to you every year. On that third bill, it gets reduced by the amount of true up. So sometimes it can look like, maybe last year it was 68,000. I don't know offhand what the amount of the true up was, but
9,048 was free.
so maybe it looks like
So
you only
paid 58, 962,
Yep.
93.
So there's kind of that, doesn't make sense for you to pay us back. It's a reduction of that last payment. So these are the budget amounts that you're given. It's back, and there's no expectation that there's any money coming back, but it's been the case at least for these last 10. So, when you look at pre-2011, town of Oregon was in those 50s when we were on a per capita basis. Then we had the new agreement phase in. There was sort of that dip, you kind of that burden shifting over to the village, and Dunn left, so there was sort of a recombobulation there of the service. Now Brooklyn began paying flat amount in 2017, so that's kind of that outlier, right? Starts to happen, and now people start to wonder why are they paying that amount? Why are we being treated differently? And that's what we want to avoid. Rutland came in 2019. The rest of that Stoughton portion, you can kind of see a little dip there that year. But you can see now, 2008, 2009, 60% of senior centers total expenditures. Now we've shifted costs so that you're down to around 8-9%. But of course, everything has gone up in price, especially the last few years, right? So you're only paying 8-9% of the proportion of the total expenditures now, but obviously it's a little bit higher of a dollar amount than you were in the late 2000s there. But again, you'll be able to lock that number in for the next 5 years. And just a couple more slides. We talked about percentages, and I did add on that third page, you can kind of see percentages of all the kind of buckets of services that we have. So there's the 3 Dane County grant funded services, so hours and case management, number of meals, number of days attended for the adult day program, and there's all other services available to the public. And you can see, as I mentioned before, town of Oregon is depending on any given service, you're around 12 to 20% of users for recorded use of those different things. And like I said, showed on, you're at about 9% for a proposed budget. But we arrived at that in a certain way, in a way that we think that everybody can come to an agreement. The adult day program is going back to a service that probably only exists because we have had this partnership. Your residents are using almost a quarter of the amount of days recorded there, so it's a valuable service that you're using, and that wouldn't have existed if that partnership wasn't there. So just couple things, as I mentioned, budget. That way that we arrived at contributions, it took the staff administrative costs from the budget. Guaranteed that flat contribution 5 years. Your contribution for 24 is a couple thousand more than this year, but it's lower than what was asked for in 22, 21, and 20. And if you look at the last, 4 to 6 years, it's in that range, and we're saying you can keep that for the next 5 years. Not responsible for capital costs, no true up means no risk being asked or required to pay more. We get kind of rid of this sort of budget coordination uncertainty process of what's the village gonna come with this year. And there's certainty on our side because we know the amount that we can expect. Peace of mind for continuity of service for our older adults. Peace of mind for senior center staff, that's something that we're sort of contending with now is people are worried about their jobs and hours and their livelihoods because of the ongoing conversations. And then for us, for municipalities, budgeting certainty, next 5 years, that this is the amount that you're coming into for senior center services. Don't have to worry about that going up. The village, we know we can count on, I think it's $130,000 in revenue. We don't have to worry about somebody paying less or leaving the service area. And as you mentioned before, there's some logic, there's some reasoning of how we arrived at this, and it keeps everyone sort of on the same playing field. So from process standpoint, we're in this crunch time for budgets. We'd love to get at least a minimum verbal commitment by at least November 3rd, so we can plug in our budgets and get those done with for 24. But if we start to get those verbal commitments from communities, we'll draft up the agreement. We'll send it to all of you for review. Take your time to review it. We're hoping we can try to settle this by the end of the year and kind of put it behind us. If it bleeds into the beginning of next year, it's okay too. Yeah, we'll draft up the agreement. You guys can do what review you need, send it to your attorney, whatever you need. If we're totally off base or there's maybe something that just isn't quite right, we're open to counter proposal, negotiation, whatever you guys have in mind. That's it.
Thank you, John. Before anybody sends any questions their way, I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that the board has not made any decision yet on direction. We've talked through a lot of options, but we haven't decided on anything. So we are at the very front of our budget discussions. And our schedule puts our budget hearing in November 16th. I don't remember, into November.
Yep.
So before then, we'll have a rough idea, but it won't be. Just so you know.
Yeah, and we understand. I think our hearing is November 20th. So if we can, we'd love to have those, even if it's just an informal verbal commitment that, we got this number plugged in here and we can count on it for our budget and adopt it. That's great. And then we can kind of get past the sort of the crunch here for 24 budget. And then we can talk, moving forward what the agreement looks like. And like I said, Village will draft it and send it along and everybody can take a look and hopefully we can find an agreement.
Board members, you want to ask questions if you have them? I just want to throw out another thing. Thank you for taking a step toward a cleaner agreement. The current one, previous one is just something else.
Again, I want to thank you too. I mean, I see that you brought it down quite a bit from the 80 something, and I appreciate a lot that you're willing to talk about it a little bit. I don't know what we're going to decide. We have a lot of differences of opinions on some of this stuff. Just to know for some of us here, it was really a hard thing when we started getting letters from town people and they didn't have all the information. And, I tried to answer each and every one individually and explain them. So I'm hoping that whatever is decided, we don't have that we get facts out there and not people say, oh, you're not gonna do this. That was really hard for me personally.
And that, I think that was sort of the thought process too. A longer duration contract, that doesn't have sort of the wild swings potential. I know we heard from towns, especially early on when we started talking about this, it'd be nice to have that flat sort of dollar to count on. But it was just how do we arrive at that? And I think for the village side, I think we feel very comfortable with what is here. But again, we're open to negotiation.
I just want to say thank you, Martin and Rachel, also for working with us and helping us get this process going. And I appreciate it, especially the going back 40 years aspect of your presentation. It was very helpful to me to kind of understand the role of the senior center in our community and how it came about. And a nice way of also explaining why these discrepancies kind of creep in over time. So thank you very much.
I've got something that might be a Jennifer question. More than for Martin or Phil. But let's say over the last, I don't know, let's use 5 years. What net amount have we paid? We have not paid the ask amount. Because almost every year, I think there's been a true up it's been a discount.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever been
And I put that in front of you. Unfortunately, we switched to the new accounting software.
Oh, okay.
So I don't have like going back, but I could, it's just in a different accounting software. So like in 2019, we paid 47.
What I'm getting at here is then
20.
the ask amounts are used. Some percentage of the ask amounts are used in the 5-year averages, right? You're not using the net amounts. So in your, even at your slide, with the historical budget contributions.
Yes.
So let's say, what was the year that you just used, Jennifer?
I used 2019.
2019, okay, say that 2019, the ask amount was 58,213, right?
So
Which isn't really a real number. I mean, it was what was asked, but it wasn't what we paid. So that's a lot like saying, if you're using those numbers, or let me ask you a question, are you using those numbers to create a starting number for the 5-year average?
No.
I think.
No.
Where does the 62,067 come from?
So that is, so if you look at the previous page, I can just walk through. So let's go to this page here. So coming up with the new idea is started with the budget, right? That was the basis that was the 2024 proposed budget. So expenses and then projected revenues that we believe we're going to receive, not including any town contributions. And then the first thing that we did is, so I should start. So these 5 columns: senior center, general, building, meal site, case management, adult pay program. That's how the village budgets for the senior center. It breaks it out into 5 different functions and just budgets that way, which of course created a complication for putting that into the current agreement, which is 3 buckets. So we started there, 5 buckets: expenses, revenues. And we took the building cost, that's 73,097, and we just said, what if we just attribute the building cost based on percentage of budget? So you can see in that 2, highlighted in 2 in red there,
Mhm.
we took the building cost and we just said, look, meal site is 68,000 net, that's 18% of the total cost. We'll attribute 18% of the building cost to that service. So then we had sort of a net total with building costs. We went on to the next page. And so for the Dane County services, the grant funded services, your meal site, case management, adult pay program. We took those net total budgets and we just said, we'll base it on usage. And so you can see how that has been distributed in those charts right there. So, and we use a 3-year average of services used, which is how the current agreement does it. And the reason why the current agreement did 3-year average is because sometimes you get outliers that create this, you know, you get one person who uses a lot of case management hours in 1 year and you have this big boost. And so the 3-year average is kind of smooth that out. So we use that again here. And so you can see the total cost for those services as being attributed based on usage. And then for number 4, then we have sort of this other blob of costs, which is everything else that's senior centered: exercise classes, wellness, recreation, you know, things that can't necessarily be attributed to the building and can't necessarily be attributed to these other specific services. And so this is where we felt that we could sort of insert the village control value. And so of that 267,000, said, look, the value of the village control here is 85% of that cost, because we can't really control the meal site case management adult day program costs, because we get that grant and we sort of have to there's a certain level that we have. But we can really control what happens in that full service area. How many exercise classes we have, how many wellness things, that's really a village. So we said, we'll just shave 85% of that cost right off. We'll take it. That's what that value is.
Well, you were talking about adult daycare, so what I help me to understand, because don't they pay for that when they come in? Depending on their income and things like that?
Yes, so, and you can see on that first page, there's sort of a revenue there. The total cost of the adult daycare program is $130,000. But we do receive about 17,000 from the Dane County grant and another 27,000 in fees collected from users. And I think some of that is Medicare reimbursement. Medicaid. So there's some grant funding, and then there's some they pay for it either themselves or through Medicaid, but that doesn't make up the full cost of the service. And so the rest of that full cost, which is about 86,000 plus another 14,000 with the building costs attributed, then gets divided out by usage amongst the service area community. So that service is available. Anybody in the service area can use it. You're paying your share, and you know, we're not limiting that in any. So the full service, like I said, we said we'll shave off 85% of that cost. That will be the village's control value, and then the rest of that we're going to attribute by population. Those services are available to everybody, in every older adult in the communities that participating, including the town of Dunn, as well as other places too. And so we just decided we'll attribute it based on costs. You can see how that sort of flows through right there, or based on population, you can see how those costs flow. And so on the last page, then you can see, you know, the 2024 calculated contribution with the new formula. And that's where that 60.67. So you can see where that flowed all the way through to get there. And then with the 5-year average, what we did is, so there's these 5 columns here. We just said, we'll take that amount and we'll just have 3% every year. Inflation for the next 5 years, and then we'll just average it. And that's where this number comes out on the other side, 65.
Got it. Yeah. Thanks for stepping through.
So, you know, was it sort of, we were trying to arrive sort of at this number where did we try to create a formula that helped us arrive towards this number? Absolutely. You know, we were trying to get to a place where we felt people would be comfortable with, and that we could get the village board to agree with, and worked for the village's financial capacity. We're going to take on about 30,000 more in expense. That worked for us based on where our budget is, and shared revenue this year was a big help. And so we kind of worked that out in our minds that works for us. And we believe it'll work for the next 5 years. And you're absolutely right. The fact that we get to keep that total amount played into the fact that we could do this for 5 years, because we know, even though the village comes to the town and says, you better budget that amount because that's what we think it's gonna cost. In fact, it might even be more if we have a bad year, but for the last 10 years, we have been good stewards and nothing catastrophic has happened. And so you have been getting some money back. So that played into helping us figure out that this amount will work for us if we can keep the total amount and we can extend it out for 5 years.
Got it.
A question, you have the contributions from the municipalities listed here. I'll pick on the adult daycare program. It's my understanding that a tremendous amount of this is funded by the service recipients. Or their families, or their insurance, or what have you. So I'm not seeing that contribution from the other sources, whether it be Medicare, Medicaid, grants, or private pay. And I'm not seeing anything contribution of that in here.
Yeah, and this page, the front page here. You can see the adult day program column. So the village is expecting about 17,000 in funding from the Dane County grant for that service.
Which, where we at?
This is the page. And I marked
It's this one?
I think so.
I can pull it up.
It says village proposed.
Oh, yeah.
Jennifer's gonna put it on.
So the fees, you're saying that there's, so that of the 100 and some odd thousand, that the users are contributing 27,000 through various means.
Yep.
There's any, does this represent, there's also the contributions to the meal.
Yep.
The free will giving, and I'm not quite sure I know where that's coming from.
So this is the total overall budget. So in terms of revenue for all of these different programs, we expect that Dane County was going to provide us with about 122,000 in revenue overall. That's going to be broken down. About 52,000 of that is going to be for the meal site. 52,000 is going to be given for case management.
Right.
About 17 is going to be given for adult day program. And then other revenues, fees that are collected. We expect about 14,000 from case management. I think that's Medicaid reimbursement. And then adult day program is 27,000, about the same. Either they're paying
it or when they're
Or-
Medicaid.
for their Medicaid. So that is pretty much it. That's the only source of revenue we really have other than the municipal contributions. And so of course, 52,000 for, case management. That might get you an employee, a 3/4 employee maybe. So that's where then then the partnership comes in and we are able to make those services a lot more robust and probably functional in some ways, given the amount of funding, with the contributions from all the partners plus the village.
Well, can I just answer a question that, Arlen, I think you were asking about free will offerings for the meals.
Yes,
The money that people donate for the meals all goes back to Dane County to offset the cost of the meals. Dane County pays for the food for the meals, and then we collect the contributions back to help put towards the cost of that food. So we collect it, we count it, we have to send them a total, and then every month that money that's collected goes back to the county.
okay. That's clarification. Thank you.
Yes.
And so that, I mean, that goes kind of back to how we've been able to do more with the partnership, because, you know, we only get but 122,000 from the county, and it's like, but you're being asked, because you're taking it, you're being asked to provide all these services to the whole service area if you take that money. And so, you know, the way that this arrangement has worked is, we've been able to do a lot more because we have had this partnership. There's been these funding sources that other senior centers haven't been able to have.
Historically, over whatever, last couple of years, let's say, how many municipalities have been donors more than contributing municipalities? So no, not signed to the contract, but giving some amount of money.
Yep, so that $1,000 up there, that's Fitchburg.
Okay.
There, and like I said, their sort of arrangement has always been, we'll give you this sort of small amount and just don't block us from being able to use the adult day program if there's a spot available for one of our citizens. And that has persisted for quite some time. So Brooklyn was sort of a bit of an anomaly because they are in the service area and they started giving a flat amount and they weren't actually party to the agreement. So again, that goes back to sort of making sure everybody's on a level playing field, and hopefully we can get there with this. And then Dunn is the other one, which they've been providing 15,500 since they left in 2012.
And are those amounts, aside from Fitchburg, that's a different situation, but are those amounts more or less equivalent to what a contractual amount would have been for those municipalities?
Yeah, we periodically,
Very close.
Pretty close.
yeah, so periodically we would, over the last 10 years, we would sort of run that calculation internally, and that's why the village of Brooklyn never sort of became an issue, because when we would run it, it'd actually always be really close, you know, to that contribution they were giving. And I think there was a couple of years where they were actually giving a little bit more than they would have been asked. And when we run Dunn, it's the same thing. They've always been sort of, you know, they don't get our Dane County services, so it's sort of unique. But they're actually, you look at the uses, they actually use the center probably more than the village, definitely more than the village of Brooklyn does. And so, you know, they've had that good contribution, and when we've looked at it, it's always sort of been in the ballpark. And it's never created an issue.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I misunderstood something, and I'm glad I get it now.
Sure.
You too. So the 122,000 from Dane County is for all of the municipalities, not just for our town.
Absolutely. So if Town of Oregon said, so long, village, we're going to wherever,
We would lose.
we would
maybe
lose
40,000.
a chunk of it.
A chunk, but not the whole thing.
I'm gonna go circle back sort of to what I was asking before. You know, in your presentation, you mentioned it's a math problem. For sure is a math problem. It's also a control problem, a budget control problem. Not a problem, it's just situations. So I would imagine you, and I think you said this, is you'd like to nail down the budget. You'd like to control your budget and get it done the way you want to. Same here. And you look at what we're gonna be, our levy for the upcoming year and, you've got a lot more growth than we do. We have next to nothing. So we're playing with a little bit less money this upcoming year. The levy is less. So it's tricky to put an increase in a budget line amount in the hands of somebody else. It's very tricky. And the original 81,000 or whatever it was just blew, we're getting an increase of about a fraction of a percent, and here was like a 30% increase. More or less. So even with a 3%, that's really, let's use 1% as maybe what our increase might be. It's not accurate, but it's easier to talk about. So if you're talking about 3 times the amount of what any other line item would increase by. So that's very tricky for us. And I don't know that we've talked through it to sort that out at all. But I just want to throw it out there that it's not just the math, it's also being able to create our budget the way that would best benefit the town overall.
Sure.
So it's very tricky.
I would say that long-term for future for the town is very difficult because of the levy limits. And that, what we were able to do many years ago was fantastic. It's just not maybe possible to get into an arrangement like that now because our hands are so tied. So I guess I was wondering, is there anything the town can do to help promote or get the county to get a contribution that might be more? Is there anything we can do to sort of increase that contribution you're getting from the county at all? Because because our hands are so tied financially in future.
Yeah. Talk about sort of like how that process plays out in terms of like asking for more and what that it looks like for them on their side.
Yeah, well, everybody, I think, feels the same way. They all don't have money. The case management and meal grant funding is based on a formula that takes into account a whole host of different things. What percent of the population lives under the poverty line? What percent of the population is over the age of 80? What percent of the population lives alone? I mean, they do all sorts of things with the demographics, census numbers and such. They also look at how much of the population has been receiving services. So one of the indications of need is how much is it being used? And if you are in a needier area, the formula looks at that. The people in the county are in the process of re-looking a bit at how their formulas are being established and how they're plugging numbers into that to see whether after X number of years, whenever they started using them before I came on the scene, whether there should be some changes in how those are managed. Every year, the Area Agency on Aging, which is the department that works with the Older Americans Act funding and gets it distributed, every year they make a request of the county to increase funding in areas that they see as being currently underfunded within the services for older adults. And of course, there's always a lot of competing need. Do we need more money in the grants for transportation to make sure that people are getting to their medical appointments? Do we need more money to provide meals because there are a lot of seniors who are needing to rely on those meals? Do we need more money for case management? This year's ask of the county to try and get increased dollar amounts is to support case management because there's increasing numbers of people in need of those services, and everybody's in the same boat in terms of trying to provide matching dollars for those grants. Municipalities are all struggling to try and do more. If all you can do ever is increase something by 1%, you're not going to be able to hire any additional hours of help because your 1% isn't even probably going to cover the cost of the increase in the electricity and the phone bill. So you can never get any additional staff. So the county's budget is not adopted yet. The county the county in and of itself cannot increase much. They ask the county exec to increase, and the county exec's budget then has to be approved by the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors will look at that in November, early November, I believe. But I know the county exec's budget did include more money for case management for all of the focal points. We don't know whether the county board will end up approving that. We're hopeful and we're lobbying, so.
I would just add, thank you, Rachel. I would just add that the chances of the town of Oregon approaching the county and asking for a special carve out are virtually nil.
Yeah,
We have the esteemed Jerry Jensen here, who was on the county board for many years, and I think he would agree with the chances of one town getting a special carve out from the county is
I
probably.
think we're just lobby, like, what can we do? to help? What,
Well-
say, hey, to our county supervisors, we'd like to see that pass.
Absolutely.
Anything we can do to try to do, those are the kind of things that I think we would like to get behind because of the town's limits, you know, that's what we would like to do. Letters of support, you know,
Absolutely.
yeah. That-
And there's sort of a calculated risk reward on the village in this arrangement. Because we don't really know what county grant's gonna do from year to year. Hopefully it'll go up and the bill, you know, in this arrangement, the village may realize some savings from that maybe won't necessarily see, although we would be absorbing inflationary costs elsewhere. But there's also a risk that maybe they have less funding to give, and now not only are they getting hit with inflation, but we're actually receiving revenue. And so you're, in this sort of arrangement, you're insulated from sort of that uncertainty, and the village is sort of taking a calculated risk reward of it might help us, but it might hurt us.
I think we're insulated from your number, and uncertainty with your number, it's all the other numbers. That's where.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's, I mean, that's a conversation I have with the village board, you know, every budget and just last Monday. You know, what is your priority? You know, what? It's a policy question at the end of the day of, you know, is this valuable? And, you know, nobody can answer that except for all of you, right? And that's fine, you know, like, we understand that, we're in the same position. And in comparison to every other service, right? And so if it's just, we can't do X and we can live with Y, you know, less service that might result from that as the village tries to kind of recombobulate its service with less revenue. Then that's, you know, that's the policy choice, and we understand that's not, you know, hurt feelings or anything. But there's a fact that happens after the fact that service might be different.
Any more questions from anyone?
And no, and I thank them so much. I think we have maybe an engineer that it's 6:42 right now.
Oh.
And yeah, and there was an engineer. I did kind of want to share though, the town of Verona and the city of Verona, when we were doing our research on it, and I don't know if you guys, I'll just pass it along. The reason that the town of Verona got out of there, yes.
When I said, I called because.
So that's why there's such
Can you tell me how you collect your money from the other people, because I need help. I was a case manager and they got rid of the administrator, the person in charge, and now it's me and I'm just new.
There was some
That
investment.
was right after
Yeah.
all that happened.
So our top two that you pointed out were a factor of not very good terms of happening with the, so, you know, just know.
Yeah,
we-
we didn't know, we weren't really sure on the whole story of back and forth.
Yeah.
We knew that, we were aware of that,
Yeah, that's why the town, yeah, or that's why the town of Verona went and said, hey, can you take us this?
and
This
that,
is bad.
you know, and that's, you know, for town of Verona, you know, they kind of put themselves in a position where they lost bargaining power with the city of Verona, right? Because they left, and now city of Verona, we don't even have the grant anymore. We figured out we could fund it ourselves. Those strings are gone, service area is gone. You want back in? Well, they lost a lot of leverage, and now
Mhm.
they're the second highest per capita contributor in senior
Yeah.
center services, right?
They also have ethics.
So, and I'm guessing that's why the city of Verona was able to do that. So, you know, as you think about contributions and things like that, you know, I think we can save a penny today, spend a nickel tomorrow, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, if we had big funding for us and we could do remodeling projects in someone else's time, that would.
That's right.
Sure.
Phil, you're gonna say something?
I was just saying, you know, we totally understand, you know, you have your budget, we have our budget. We think this is a good plan. If the numbers don't work, then as Martin said, I think from the outset, then, you know, come back and tell us what you think is fair
Mhm.
or what you can do. I think it's important that if there's disagreement, that you come back and give us a concrete alternative
Mhm.
rather than just, this won't work for us.
Right.
You know, it's not good for anybody to operate that way, and I'm sure you'd agree. So, you know, if it's, we'd like you to be able to participate at this level, but if not, come back with a concrete alternative.
We value the relationship with the village immensely,
Yes.
and we value the senior center services
We understand.
off the charts. It's really got nothing to do with
I understand that. too.
what happens at the senior center, it's
Absolutely.
numbers and, you know.
We want it there for everyone.
Can't
So
do
we're,
it.
so we're looking for a win-win, and I think we're good.
Yeah. Would you guys draft the agreement, though? You'll take on that cost?
That's correct.
Okay, so I think that once we do that, we can agree. Okay, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Yeah. What's that? You can wear that, Jerry.
Good with your connection?
I am good, and Ryan is not on, Jerry. I don't know if he was on, but I was a little concerned that Jerry's engineer, who might charge a
Oh,
lot per hour, was on our Zoom call and getting a lot of information about a senior center. He might not care to, but it looks like either if he was on, he's off now. So,
let me know when you're all set. I'll just look.
do you want to move on the agenda
Let's,
to go to Jerry?
yeah, let's,
Which
go.
is
Yeah.
number 9.
Yeah, definitely. let's do that.
Very
You probably don't want to sit another hour.
You know, I didn't realize it changed it to 5:30.
We had that thinking they were going to take not very long, and so I apologize.
No, that's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry about that, yeah,
No,
so
I apologize.
that was kind of just to accommodate them. He has a young family.
I
so-
see. Okay, okay.
So,
Okay, so we're gonna jump to item 9, which is the plan commission report. And Mr. Kai, would you like to take that one?
Well, we've met, at the site, we have received plans from Quam Engineering. And we have a letter, and there's been a lot of back and forth on getting various amounts of engineering data. And I think we are at a point where we are going to recommend, or I was going to recommend that we approve the engineering C. Accept the engineering report. And approve the engineering. C. The development as proposed in the engineering. We do not have a developer's agreement yet. So this is not a complete approval, but acceptance and approval of the engineering documents for the extension of Windridge and the creation of 2 new lots in that area.
Jennifer, do you need any
I can make a-
clarification?
I'm going to put, I move to approve and accept the engineering plan for extension of Windridge and approval of 2 lots. Is that correct?
As presented in the engineering plans.
We have a second on that.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion passes.
Is there anything else you needed, Jerry?
Well, I just wanted to thank the board and members of the Plan Commission that came out on August 21st, I believe, to do a site visit. It was a beautiful day and I think everyone, appreciated going up on top of the hill and seeing that for themselves. I want to give a shout out to David Hageman. Every time I looked to see where he was up in the cornfield or over in the over to the side, looking at he looked everything over really, really well.
Yeah.
And
You covered a lot of ground.
yes, to give you just a little update on the developers agreement. It's a step-by-step process to get to the developers agreement. We needed the engineering to be done in order to get a cost estimate for building the road. And then that cost estimate goes to the bank in order to get the letter of credit. And then the letter of credit then actually completes the builder's agreement. I have several other pieces in line, and we're just waiting for the engineering to be approved, and that you did tonight, and I very much appreciate that. So you'll see me in coming months with other pieces of the process.
Sounds great. Good. Thanks for your endurance through this too. It's been a process.
Jerry, just out of curiosity, one of the plans said April of 24. Is that when you're gonna start moving dirt for the road, or are you going to do it yet this year?
No, well, it'll be April of 24,
Okay,
right? Yeah, as soon as, yeah. He didn't want to open it up now in case we got a 10-year event or, it had mud running everywhere.
Right.
We'll just wait, and when the ground settles in the spring, then we can move on.
The Lions also have to come in with
Right.
oh,
some of their stuff.
okay.
If there is something like a site observation out there, just an aside, I see that the neighbor to the west of the northern lot is for sale. And that there's an accessory building that's encroaching on your property.
Yeah. Former owner put that little building there, and it was not a big deal for me, so
It's
being neighborly, I said, well, just leave it,
Well, sometime in there, they're gonna have to come to it, and they're also gonna need to be 10 feet away from their property line.
Yeah. Okay,
We should
Okay.
probably tell them that.
yeah. Okay. Brenda said
We'll work on
she
it.
could drive one answer about it.
For your realtor to,
Yeah, right.
talk to their realtor.
Yes, yes.
Mhm. All right,
We'll work on
thank
it.
you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, back to the top of the agenda, not the very top, but the approval of minutes. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of minutes. If no one has questions or comments about them, we can take care of them all in one shot. Anything, anybody? And without objection, the minutes from September 12th, the board meeting, September 25th, the board meeting. September 19th, the combination plan commission, public hearing and board meeting. The September 28th bid review. And the October 6th remodeling meeting are all approved. Item number 5. Financial report and payment voucher approval. Any comments or questions on that? So then without objection, I will approve the financial report and the payment voucher approval for $66,166.28. Item number 6, public comments, anyone? No?
Let me just check, let me.
Oh,
let's go
there
to,
we go.
yeah, Sharon's the only one. Sharon, you have anything? Okay, thanks, Sharon.
Thank you. Item number 7, fire and EMS reports. Brooklyn, anything, Steve?
I was not at the last meeting, but
I think that we were a little confused last month, so I sent out a notice because Lori, and I apologize, in the packet is the clean version of the new agreement. And then I also included the redlined version in the packet, so that's why I made the packets quite so big. But I wanted to make sure everyone knew what was changing, so I can try to.
It
get
looked like
down
it was
here.
it looked like it was primarily title changes to positions. It was a retirement account
Yeah.
that was talked about, and it was also the memorial fund, and beyond that, there was not much, nothing.
Right.
I mean, not that those things aren't significant, but it was not any. broad change.
Sarah, from the Brooklyn, she would like the town board to approve the updated agreement. And we didn't do that because we didn't think we had to. And we also at the last meeting didn't have the
clean
clean.
one?
Yeah, so I would look for,
It's on page 18. right? Mhm.
Starting 18.
the clean copy starts on page, looks like 18. Yeah,
Is this this being a contract, we have to buzz it by our attorney?
no, this is just a change to the agreement and there's no financial changes. It's just the things that Carl stated.
Yeah, I buzzed through it, I skimmed through it. And saw that I didn't see any red.
It's blue.
It's actually blue and that's.
Yeah.
It was red
Yeah.
in last month. wasn't it? You read my copy. It's blue.
It's blue line copies.
Okay.
First one she sent me were two of the same, and then I got this one and it's blue, yeah. So like, if you looked on page, Arlen, starting on page 41, you'll start to see where that, with some of those, like, where it's a change from the word assistant to the word division.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of how it goes through.
Yeah, that's,
The rest of it is just changing of like words from assistant to division. So they must make, that must make a difference in.
then on page 47, they started to get into the changes to the retirement account. And if you're on to the next page, and is that it? That might be it then.
Page 48 has some red in it, so, and blue. And did you talk about this since I wasn't at the joint Brooklyn meeting? Was this discussed there? No.
No,
But this was discussed by us before. It was just never.
it was discussed here, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Mark started to talk about it,
The retirement
right,
issues.
right, the funding. Where the money going, it's staying.
So they're looking for approval. I
Mhm.
mean, right now, it appears to be primarily semantics.
Not semantics, just labels.
The title.
Labels for the
title
position
change or
description.
Position.
Yeah. So-
labels
That's, I mean,
change.
so it's, the semantics changes,
Yeah,
not substantive or title changes or.
The retirement is moderate. Yeah, but.
And that had been discussed.
That was discussed going back, it was discussed going back maybe
Some-
6 months ago or
several
something,
times,
yeah.
yes.
So it's,
And at that time, we were saying, this is.
I think we said,
Internal housekeeping.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think bring it back to us when you've got the document, and that's what
Yeah.
they've done, what Sarah's done.
Like part of that was also the memorial they
Right.
go back and forth on, and they really have. I don't think they have an idea of what they're gonna do with it yet, but they're proposing to do something. By the last meeting I was at, they kind of talked about it for a second, just kind of dropped it, but
Yeah, the mention in here just says a memorial fund will be established to be used towards blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So it's just talking about what they'll do in the future. It's not,
And that's just
it's not
my-
defining a fund, it's just saying that they'll take care of it.
that's something that's.
Which really
that's
shouldn't be
their
here, but-
situation in Brooklyn rather than.
Yeah.
Well, are we comfortable with making a motion this month, or do we pass it on to next month and have all of us read this carefully?
I mean,
I mean, it seems like we can make the
I
motion
think we
now.
can.
We can make a motion.
I mean, really, it's so the, what is that, 97% of the agreement has already been approved, right?
Yeah.
So we're editing a couple things that do
Yeah.
not significantly change the direction of the district. So I'm comfortable.
So there's two agreements here, I
Yeah.
believe, one's for the fire and one's for the EMS.
This is let me just check the title real quick.
Yeah, there's two of them.
I think they're the same agreement.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
the
it's
district is
just
the
the
same,
reason there are two agreements is one is the clean copy and one is the red or the blue line.
but it covers both. The
Yeah.
Fire and EMS are the same district.
Are in the same agreement.
Correct. Well, same district too, right?
Yeah, they have different budget, but they're the same. They merged.
Oh, wait, so we have included for discussion the February 16th, 2022 in here that's been updated to be the August 2023, which is a title on 419.
Yeah. So
The
you.
exhibit 1 is on page 37.
Let's see.
I move that we approve the Brooklyn Fire and EMS Protection District agreement dated August 30th, 2023.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Say no, motion passed. Thank you. Let's see. Just a quick thing about Belleville, the Belleville EMS, not the Belleville here, I don't know if it's on the agenda, but they hired, I don't know how you pronounce his name, I think it's Chris Backus. And he'll be the next chief of the Belleville area EMS. And I think he starts submitting them.
And he came out of,
Came out of Oregon. Yeah.
so we've lost,
Well, dog eat dog world.
what's a dog eat dog world?
And then, let's see, okay, so then, one of the issues, this is 7B that we're talking about here, is that Belleville is looking to buy a new engine. And I'm trying to find, so the question came up in the,
54, page 54.
the question came up. In the joint meeting about apparently there was some kind of cash discount if you paid either
Uh-huh.
in advance or if you paid in two payments.
Yes.
So either 27 or 29,000 if it was all paid up front, or then 20-ish if you paid in advance a year and then a year later. So the question then is, what would be the impact on, say, us, for example? And then the answer. The letter version, there it is. Oh, so anyway, this is 54. And this is, I think at this point, the Belleville is just looking for a general idea of the answer. They're not looking for approval of this, I don't think, because it's not.
I think we approved it after the meeting.
The
Thought they were deciding tonight. Am I wrong? I thought I asked him. Let me bring up my email to him.
But I'm not even sure what they're doing though. I don't know that they know it. After the meeting, it was a question. And whoever needed to research it, and maybe it was Joe. Did not have the answer that night.
Yeah, they were calling
They were,
the vendors
right,
to, and it was what, like 8:30 at night,
Yeah.
they had them right on the phone. Talking about the advantages and disadvantages of those prepayment.
right.
And then I do remember at one point, one of the guys said, it's sort of a wash. But I can't remember why he said
I'm not
that.
sure. I don't know.
He just said, yeah, he said he would let me know. It all just depends how the meeting goes tonight. He said, hi Jennifer, it depends on what option they decide to go with as to allocation. I think the meeting is next Tuesday, which is tonight, but I can provide some projections based on each scenario. If that would help you out, let me know. Thanks, Joe. And then I just said, yeah, that, to let me know, and he was gonna let me know.
I just clicked it, okay, it's tonight. The
Yeah.
meeting's tonight, where they're gonna make the decision, so there's nothing to approve, really.
No, no, I think what I was just wondering is, I was asking what our share was, so that if we are going to have to pay for it in 24, we're gonna take out a loan for the Oregon capital, that we would roll this amount into what we're buying for the Oregon capital as well. I just wanted to know what our share of it was.
Did he give you that number?
He didn't, because he said it depends on what they decide to do.
About this prepayment
Yeah,
issue.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think just to give you an idea, it looks like a $750,000 purchase price. Usually our share of anything is less than 2% with Belleville.
Mhm.
So you're talking about, $37,000 to $40,000, something like that. But not nothing.
But that we would not be paying.
We're not paying the 750,000, so that's not our number. That's the total purchase amount. So really nothing, I guess it's informational then tonight.
Along with the informational, we have Oregon Fire Department and EMS listed on here too. Something that caught my attention was the chief's description of his future planning.
Mhm.
And I was a little surprised that he was making it very open and very public, that they're looking at having or increasing the district, which was not veiled very much, but it was implying Brooklyn would be joining, Oregon and Brooklyn would be joining forces.
That is nowhere near anything.
It doesn't much matter, but is it, it's being discussed in one party. Is it being discussed at the other party?
In Brooklyn?
Yes.
Um,
Or wherever they're having, I agree with, this is not something that's gonna happen overnight.
So keep in mind, okay, so one of the downfalls of the way we changed around and made it be elected officials is we lose some of the knowledge that over the last year, let's say, of what the discussions were. My impression is that there was no discussion of consolidation in Brooklyn. I could be 100% wrong, but I'm just going by.
I think they talked about it, if you don't mind me. I think they talked about it. I think they were just not getting into any details at that time, but there was a door opened.
And I think that in the joint meeting, when Chief Linsmeyer spoke about, because wasn't he asked about consolidations?
It
A little
was
bit.
just a possibility of what to look like that could happen in the next 10 years. We talked about it a little bit. Ken Knutson wanted to know what would happen with consolidation. And again, they're nowhere near it, you know, but he explained that one thing that would really help, because there's more people, there's more ambulance calls. So what if we were consolidated with them and then we would use their ambulance? Because their ambulance is all volunteer right now. So if you're waiting for it there, you're gonna wait a lot longer than if you're here. So it would improve service. Maybe some way then they could have full-time, and there's all sorts of things that could happen, but it's nowhere near.
Okay, well, I mean, you're putting out there 10 years away. I find 10 years goes very quickly.
Right. I mean, we haven't really talked about it at the commission because he has not really said that maybe the door is opened to collaborate at least a little bit with Brooklyn, because before the door was slammed shut. So he's just waiting a little bit till he feels like he can have that conversation with Brooklyn.
Well, that was a very public statement that caught my attention.
Hey, was there anything else with Oregon? Nothing, so we've got looks like the budget documents in here.
Yes, I'm sorry, I put the budget documents for all 3 of the districts in here, because I wanted to make sure when I'm starting to formulate our budget that I had the right numbers. So, but I'm still waiting for, obviously tonight for Belleville, that they haven't. So it looks like the town of Oregon share to the Belleville Fire is gonna be $2,655.
Right.
If they pass it, it looks like Belleville for EMS would be $4,091.22, and then if that passes, and then whatever they decide for that fire engine would be in addition to that. Going down to Brooklyn EMS. It looks like we would be $21,980.48 on page 61. All these numbers seem like what you guys talked about at the joint meetings.
At least once, yeah, at least the ones I went through.
28,921.38 for Brooklyn Fire. And then I was at the joint meeting for Oregon, so 195, then we have 81,378 for capital for Oregon. And then in addition, just so everyone knows, with Brooklyn, we also have the building loan, which is an additional $12,000 payment.
But that exists now. Right.
Yeah, it's not going on. Yep. Okay.
Excellent, thank you. Anything else, anybody, fire EMS related? Moving on to item 8, the town disposal site report.
On page 66 of the packet, there's a little memo. I just tried to gather some information to share about how the transition is going from keeping these limited services at the Torque. And it continues that, again, we don't have a door counter or anything official to keep track of traffic. But it appears to the staff that just as it was before we made the shift, especially in the summer and early fall, about 2/3 of the business, or 60%, is just dropping off brush. That's the main thing people are doing. And then another maybe 40% or so of the traffic is either disposing of large items like mattresses, and then also metal and oil. And the only thing we're charging for now are the large items. And we were kind of keeping track of the number of hours, so our hours are way reduced to 4 hours on Saturday, 2 or 3 attendants present, depending on how busy they are and so on. One of the attendants was off on medical leave for several weeks, so that's partly why the The staff has been variable. And we have, as you all probably remember, if you were here last year when we explained our high-tech accounting system. And we weren't writing this down. Jennifer has the exact numbers in the office, but we weren't taking in very much additional revenue each week, maybe $500 for the whole month of September. There is a complication that Sheldon pointed out, because some people are still using up their punch cards. And so we have some people paying for large items with remaining punches that we have. We're not tracking that, obviously. So we had about 34.5 hours worked in September. And then Jennifer told me there was a bill, one bill for hauling something, or $900. No, it was for hauling the large dumpsters out, the open tops out, 900 for September. So that's just kind of a rough, approximation of what's going on there. And there are things that we've been talking about, talking with residents, things that keep coming up, and I wanted to just put those out there. In the winter, do we want to be open every Saturday or every other Saturday? We have been hearing from the residents who talk with us. It would be very hard to find one set of hours that would be convenient to every person. That's what our challenge is. But it has come up that Wednesday, a few hours on Wednesday afternoon in the summer would be helpful. And we actually do have staff. I think Mike and Greg at this point are still willing, they would be happy to work. In the past, we were always wondering if we could find anybody who would work at the Torque, but we have people now that wouldn't mind working there. This thing about a little bit of loss. So yeah, the Torque probably still isn't really breaking even necessarily, but we're really doing kind of a low budget sort of operation. That's always been an issue. And I remember that Fred Clark used to sometimes refer us back to the ordinance that says we must provide this service. And I know that this comes up different times. So if there is there are months when we're really not really breaking even on what we're charging for, isn't this all part of, the service that people really appreciate, especially the brush disposal, they appreciate that. Lots of this just keeps coming up, so I'm putting it out here. We just keep hearing these people say, why can't you just make it a self-serve operation? And couldn't you just get some security cameras? And I thought, if I were really an ambitious person who enjoyed making cold phone calls, I'd call and ask some people, how much would security cameras? They're probably going to cost about $1 million. Well, you know what I'm saying? They probably cost a lot. And then that operation, that place, like how would they be positioned and then all of that. But that just keeps coming back to us about, couldn't we possibly operate it as a self-serve operation? And I'm just trying to get the feel for what people are talking about, what people would like, or what they wonder about. And then what always comes back when we raise the question of the security cameras is, well, that location is somewhat remote compared to some other recycling centers or drop-off places and so forth. And isn't this just inviting people to come and throw a whole pile of shingles there or overnight and all of that? So that's always why we've stood back from that whole idea of the self-serve. That's the main reason we've been reluctant to do that. Now, another thing came up, and you may have seen emails about a request from a resident about
Free day.
a free day. And I mentioned that to the manager of the Torque. And he said, well, we have the recycling center. We wouldn't have to the way it was presented, wasn't it that people could just put anything they wanted out for Pelletary to pick up at their homes?
I think so. Is
Yeah.
that what,
Yeah.
was there a restriction on the items though?
I'm sure.
There's gotta be.
But other municipalities, they all do it different ways. And when we were originally getting the quotes, there were different options
Yeah,
that
they
you
could
could
do
go
that.
into but at the time it was the struggle was real, so it was just like getting the carts. There was no
Right,
other,
right.
there was really no other, but you can do like Village of Brooklyn does it where you have like a dumpster day,
Yeah.
whether it's free or whether they pay, it's just a day or 2 days during the year. But I know town of Rutland and I think the town of Dunn have 2 days built into their contract that Pelletieri will pick up.
But Rutland doesn't have curbside.
I'm sorry. I had the woman tell me Rutland today, must be done,
She did
must
say
be
that.
done,
Did you?
yeah, it
Right.
must be
I
done.
think Dunn
I
has
bet
certain-
it's done.
Has a
Yeah.
lot of stuff out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's, must be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rutland doesn't have
Yeah.
curbside, although I think there may be communities that don't have curbside, but that do sponsor something like that. And I think Abel was telling me that, and in the town of Albany, they were doing that. That they, you could bring everything, but I believe they stopped doing it because people were abusing it.
Hmm.
And, and that was the thing that I have to say, the manager of the door, otherwise known as.
Couches and mattresses, we're already still doing quite good, it seems to me.
Yeah, people are bringing couches and mattresses and they seem to appreciate it. And so but that's not on my sheet, but it, that
was
just
a thing, yeah.
came up.
Yeah.
But I could see it certainly something where you might offer special days a couple times a year to get rid of certain stuff. But you'd have to limit it such that people wouldn't call all their friends in everywhere and you bring truckloads. That's
Right.
what Abel said, people would bring truckloads of stuff. One family would come back repeatedly with a horse trailer full of stuff. And that sort of defeated the whole purpose of serving everybody else.
So these free days would be at curbside, right? They wouldn't be
That
at-
was what I
at the door,
understood
yeah.
it to be.
Yeah.
That was what was asked about. But we could certainly, I think, have some sort of things like that.
I think
I mean, it's something to keep in mind because, and I was remembering back last summer when we were going through all this discussion. I used to think, well, it would really be great if we could just do both things, like if we could still have a functional recycling for certain kinds of things to supplement the curbside, the weekly pickup. Since we have the facility, and that was one idea. And then the last thing that has come up in conversations with different people, and it does happen in reality. People will come, and I understand this happened this weekend, people will come from the village. And the current manager feels that if they're willing to pay to get rid of their mattress, he says, yeah, go ahead, and collects the money. But this leads to this broader issue that we have pursued different times of maybe working with the village a little bit about sharing access to our recycling center and maybe collaborating with that service a little bit.
Mhm.
Anyway, those are just some things that people are talking about, things we can look at down the road.
I think it's worth talking to Pelletieri about sort of special days, whatever that means, whether
Mhm.
it's large items at curbside or whatever other ideas they have. I think it's worth talking.
We have that really nice service at this weekend of the electronics
Yeah.
drop off. That's a very good service for them. But that happens, does that just happen once a year?
It happens once a year. It's a project of the Oregon Rotary Club.
Yeah.
Is that-
And-
And it's
is that all
this
weekend or is that just
Saturday.
Yeah.
This Saturday from 8 till noon.
That's at the.
So get rid of your old computer.
Yeah,
now.
Oh, I
you
don't-
just drive, you don't have to get out of your car, you just drive in, they take it away.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff you don't pay for, some stuff you do pay for. Anyway, those are just all the latest on. the
Can I
board.
chime in about the self-service idea? I don't think it's even a camera problem or extra dumping. I don't think it's that. I think it's safety
Mhm.
of the
I
people.
didn't mention.
Like unsupervised, people are there, something's gonna fall on somebody and they won't be found for
Oh, and
12 hours or whatever.
Bad stuff does happen with
It's not,
people, they're backing up, people have defective tailgates on their truck boxes and people have been injured getting in and out of the truck box and all that kind of thing. And and people would come by themselves.
We're looking for a lot of trouble if you. open
And,
up
and,
something
and that
like
would be like, what would be our liability,
Yeah,
you know?
right.
Somebody tripped in one of the potholes in the in the pavement or something like that.
Right.
No, this is very good. While you're looking for something that's trying to pay for itself, that's great. But and this is on the operating
It's just
part,
trying to kind of keep track.
it's going to be. Fine, we're always gonna be supporting something, but what's not in here is the capital cost, those
Yeah.
potholes that need to be
Right,
filled.
that's
all
part of the whole thing, yeah.
That's part of the whole thing
Yeah.
and that's where continuing on for a year here and get some experience under our belt.
Better, you know, as better records of what we take in, what goes out and so on. And so maybe what you would like for the next report would be some look at some of those capital issues that you mentioned.
Right, but I think we can grow into that,
Mhm.
and yes, I still have,
See, you know, those are gonna be worth money someday.
they still are.
On eBay.
On
or
eBay,
someplace, yeah. Yeah.
Well, when I have a mattress to get rid of.
Yeah, oh, yeah, and you will. Everybody
Well,
does
I've
eventually.
got a pile of shingles that I know I can't bring there, so, but, we still have, I mean, just for the piles of stuff that left over from construction, I know that if I have got junk, it'll be $300-400 to get junk away, so other people will be facing that. And I'm sure they'll be tempting to abuse
Yeah,
things, so I think just continue on and
We're just
good,
trying to-
good information.
just trying to keep regular kind of tabs on what's going on so we can make more informed decisions as we go
I
forward.
think we need some time to, I agree that we
Yeah.
need to get a longer period to get a trend out of that on multiple things. But I do have one question, because there was a resident in here a few meetings back talking about like springtime, an extra collection day, and then also around leaf fall time, which would be now, an extra collection day or two. I don't remember exactly what he said.
Or extra time.
That maybe isn't a horrible idea.
No,
the
he was
fall.
back in today. I just wanted to mention that. He was back in today and he was like, did I come in and did that just get like fallen off? Did they just toss that? And I actually read him your memo and he was very thankful that it was still being discussed. And he was, you know, he's very, very, very nice.
What's his name again?
You know what? That would be, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But it's nice. And we explained that you guys are still working on it, but he was asking again if there would be any additional Wednesday hours or something
Yeah.
for the rest of this year.
I think
So-
extra hours on Saturday too.
He wanted afternoon hours, and I
Yeah.
think when I clarified with him, it was afternoon hours, and I think he was okay with Wednesday. I mean, I just remember, I think.
Yeah,
I think it could have been Saturday too, but I think, you know, you and I were talking, it was.
well, I do believe there are certain people who use the torque every weekend. They spend the morning gathering up their stuff and then they bring it in the afternoon.
That's what, that was his
And I
point.
believe that that's something we should think about going forward. Yeah.
Given that it's going to be, you guys only meet once a month, is that something you're wanting to do starting November 1st of this year? Afternoon hours?
It'd be nice if we could squeeze something in. I think it'd
You
be
wanna
nice for the
switch over
fall.
to Wednesday,
Well, I
starting,
don't know. We also talked about consistency in hours though, too.
that's our difficult thing is the communicating that to the public is.
Which is why I would like to
Well,
know now if we were doing
right.
something this year. I
Well, the
think it
tricky
would
thing with
be-
this particular situation is we don't know when the leaves are gonna fall. You know, they're barely started at this point. I mean, I think November might
But we
be
could maybe,
late.
the guys could put up a sign down there, you know, for a couple weekends ahead and then make it like November 1st or first week in November, second week,
I
and
think-
just have
I don't know.
extended hours.
Yeah.
November 1st is a Wednesday, actually, as a
Oh,
matter of fact,
oh.
so that would
Well,
be,
yeah.
you know, there's the 1, 2, it'd be 3 weeks notice if you started November 1st.
Okay.
Well, November 1st, everything's pretty much done.
Well, that's what I don't know about.
If you're going to be cutting brush, now's gonna be the time.
Now's the time.
Now through Halloween and maybe a little bit afterwards. If there was anything, we've shut down the Wednesday operation. If there's anything for afternoon, we officially closed down at 12 right now.
Yeah.
If,
You think you can have someone come on Wednesday afternoon for a few hours through the end of the leaf season?
but what if we extended the hours till 3 o'clock? Now till,
On Saturdays.
on Saturdays,
Be a bad idea.
from now until that first week of November.
I would advocate perhaps because of the situation, I would maybe would do it maybe the second or third week of November, just giving some time.
Fine.
Some more time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Through the second or third week.
I mean,
Started.
so what's November 22nd is the week of Thanksgiving. So, you know, that would give you 4 weeks in November.
Okay, well, if somebody,
Or the
what's going to be dropped off? It's gonna be brush
Leaves.
and leaves. Okay, leaves are, in case you haven't known, they're starting to pile up now.
Yeah,
Are they, well, I've noticed they're starting to fall.
Yeah, and we have an odd,
That's the thing is, I don't know.
we have an odd, we had a very odd season that this is the latest color change
That
that
you-
I have ever seen.
yeah.
So in the next, between now and Halloween, which can often have snow-covered trick or treating.
Mhm. So you're.
The 25th is a Saturday, and so that would be like right around Thanksgiving. So would that seem like the last day to have it be
So
open?
I think with Arlen's, excuse me, I think with Arlen's.
Oh,
It's
okay.
October, yeah.
Yeah, good snow.
Now, it's sort of now.
so like doing like November 11th,
would
so
be the-
doing now till November 11th, which would be the first 2 weeks in
Yeah.
November.
I think that would be very helpful if people are. Would 2 hours be sufficient or would 3 hours be?
You know, I
better?
think, I think 3 would be fine.
Okay, so till 3 to facilitate.
Brush drop off.
Brush and leaf.
disposal.
Okay, I'm making a
Uh,
motion.
I'm making that a motion that we,
Before you do, can I just clarify,
Yeah.
whether we're talking about Wednesday or adding on? Adding on to Saturday.
I'd say have that be the consistent time that not open it on Wednesday.
Mhm.
Okay,
That if,
Yeah, because then they can advertise that to the people that are coming in the morning. They can just put up a little sign.
yeah,
We'll have to get some signs
Sure.
up.
so make a motion that we extend the hours for fall brush and leaves collection or disposal to our good citizens from going forward on, see, is it 16th?
so
14th,
if we started the 14th,
start the 14th through November 11th.
Through November.
and then that would be, and you're saying from, is it 8 AM?
8:30.
8:30 AM to 3.
8
Yes.
AM to 3 PM. Okay,
Any second to that?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes. Okay, excellent. Okay, we did item number 9 already. Item number 10, park report.
Yep, I guess something from Steve. First off, the last week, Parks meeting, Robert Johnson came in and announced that it was his final day. And it's been announced already, so
Yep.
you're now down, starting in January, we'd be down from 5 to 3 members at this point tonight.
Right.
Um,
And the park committee usually takes a break until spring.
it will take, yes,
Okay.
and matter of fact, we're not meeting in October at all.
Okay,
And,
so it buys us a little bit of time to find. some people who are interested.
A couple things, Ryan's son who was hired to mow in the summertime and was working out very nicely in the park. So it turns out that being 16, they found out that he was not legally able to mow. Well, they just found out that that's not correct.
Oh,
He is. he is able to
Okay.
mow.
Yeah.
So that rule was not correct. And it sounds like Ryan, good news is, Ryan's son will be back next year. But he was able to do a lot of weed whacking things. There are things that's, as far as, that Steve had volunteered, he said if anybody in the town crew at some point would like to walk through with him, he would be more than happy to go out and take a look at the areas that are in need. And there are some things that, there's places that there's a lot of signs that need to be refurbished to touch up. There's wooden benches that need to be refurbished. For example, in Ravens Oaks Parks, I don't think they've taken care of that yet. So they need to be sanded and stained.
There was a Girl Scout that did that when we got the handicap swing
Oh,
there.
okay.
She volunteered and did that and she painted the sign.
Oh, just recently?
No,
Okay, no, that's something past, okay. Hillcrest Park, little library and the bench replacement has yet to be done. Some tree planting, that's been yet to be done, but there are trees being donated by, I don't know who the source is. There needs to be some timber replacement around the playground. Wooden bench and picnic table needs to be sanded and stained. Arbor systems need to look at the tree, the swing set, there's some dead issues. New sign replacement in the green space area next to the road and refurbishing of existing signs, that's at the Hillcrest Park. The town park, seems that there's been a lot of trash really accumulating out there, so they're looking. I know that Steve had written on here, trash pickup on Mondays. Does that mean that I'm not sure exactly what that means, to be honest with you. The swing seats there, need to be replaced. They're in pretty bad condition. Wooden benches on the hill also need to be replaced.
It would be, just sorry to
Go
interrupt,
ahead.
it'd be good to find, put numbers to those, the
Mhm.
dollar amounts of that. So that we can include or exclude during the budget conversation.
Okay.
and what about a park plan? Because if we had a park plan, we could be doing grants for some of this stuff, particularly trees. But because we don't have a park plan, we just pay for it, or it's paid for out of the fund. But if we had the plan, we could do grants as the village had got so many trees
Mhm.
paid for. But we can't do any of that until we have a park plan.
Yeah, I know in the, I think it was July meeting, they talked about there's different trees that need to be. For example, Hillcrest trees that haven't been planted yet, but. Someone is, I'm not sure, someone has already volunteered to donate.
I think that was just gonna come out of the park.
Yeah,
So I mean, I think we should
yeah, okay.
Yeah, we should, I
hold
think,
up a little bit and see.
We're gonna have to hold up a little bit anyway, because there's, since as far as the,
Right.
you're losing somebody with 40+ years on
Right.
Steve, and
I would pick his brain as much as you can as far as some of the specifics on these
Mhm.
things, like what specifically, who's donating, or what's the dollar amount of this repair, and, just to get a good list. Sooner rather than later, I mean, it's not.
The question is, we always have the Eagle Scouts and to make those benches that don't last very long. I mean, is there any way to say we need Eagle Scouts because they do this to get their badge or whatever? To do some of that stuff, that seems like,
And I know a lot of scout projects obviously have been done there and very successfully.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll see if I can get a hold of Steve. I know he's. He's traveling, but I know he's gone for the month and,
On some of these things, like the Eagle Scouts versus the park
I
plan.
mean, the Eagle
There's
Scouts
a-
usually
there's a
tell
gap.
us what they want to do, but I mean, I don't
Well-
understand why we couldn't say this is where we
Yeah.
need the help.
Right, even more general than that, though.
Yeah.
That's more of a beyond this winter kind of thing, and there's some things that Steve's talking about that we kind of would, it'd be beneficial to know details now. So if we're gonna spend money on something that we get set up for that, then I think through selecting people, we get positioned for the park plan or plans for
Right.
assistance from scouting groups or whatever it is, that's just a little bit down the road.
let's see, brush along the hard surface trail leading to Shield Road entrance needs to be picked up. Wooden benches and the areas around it along the trail need to be refurbished. 2 handicap parking signs. I don't know if they have been ordered, says are to be ordered and placed in the parking lot. I don't know I don't know if that's been done.
Yeah.
Kennedy Park, the playground needs to be replaced, is the way it's put very bluntly. They need to have manufacturers bid on the total replacement along with replacement of new structures.
Is it-
There will be no meeting for October, and this is note from Steve, and my last meeting will be the November meeting. So if you have lists and things that, really help me out, please send me anything and I will have a discussion with Steve and,
Oh, you have a huge list there. I
yeah.
would bet that none of us have a similar list.
Okay,
So, if you use that list as a basis for getting more information, I think that's the way to go.
Okay, and I'll get this, Stephanie sent this out to me, so I'm sure we can get this sent out to everybody also.
Yeah, I didn't send it out to everyone because I wasn't really quite sure. I will add that, one of the disconnects that's happening is the park committee used to have work days where community would get together and go out and do some of these projects that he's addressed. And so I think what the town board is gonna now have to consider is just like other things, those are staff people when you having the volunteers go out and clean up some of that stuff.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure that our staff can take all of that on anymore. So there's gonna have to be a little bit of discussion as like, how are all of these projects going to get done? Over the years, the Scouts have created a lot of trails, they've created a lot, and so all those trails require upkeep, which is just a lot.
It adds
for-
up.
Yes, for us to do. So what that looks like going forward, I think it's just something you have to consider.
I think as Kate would had said earlier about a plan, and the very last note from Steve was needs assessment and an update of the town's recreational park system plan needs to take place.
Was Carp Seed? Was there a discussion with someone from Carp Seed that included?
I don't think they were going to.
Not a
Okay.
park plan. They can help with specific aspects of things, like if you have like a specific topic, they could help you research it, but not
Not
like,
the whole thing.
not the whole thing. I think you would want to look for some type of
The village,
help you.
yeah, or the village has got a plan that's, 50 pages thick, that's probably a decent model to use. I was gonna say one other thing, just about really having too much work to do and not enough staff. You think of like Roe Parker and the Friends of Anderson,
Just think about roll, because rolls.
but that model might be an okay model to at least discuss, a Friend of Town of Oregon Park or whatever it's called, and move some of that to that
Right,
group.
right. And that could happen. I know Stephanie got on and she was sending out letters and it was very effective and perhaps it's something the town could consider. Steve was starting and we were sending direct letters to residents surrounding a park. And then they came to a meeting. And I think, Kate, you were involved in some of
Yeah.
those. And it was kind of unfortunately still during the COVID sort of time, so our response wasn't really good. But I think that could be another model you might want to follow to try to get maybe a few residents within each community that might help kind of cultivate like a cleanup day or something
But
of
we
that
did that at
nature.
Kennedy Park, but nothing ever happened. We never did what they asked for.
Oh,
Oh. Oops.
well, I didn't say, I mean, you got the people out.
And we had quite a few, and we asked what they wanted, and nothing happened. I mean, that's such a wide open park and able, can't stand having to mow it either. And they wanted a nice place where they could walk instead of.
And that is a
Maybe,
problem.
maybe plant something but nothing ever happened. This was gonna be expensive.
It's too much to mow. It
Right.
really, it is, I would say, in terms of efficiency for employees, for time, for labor, for wear and tear on the equipment that we buy. It is by far the worst. So it is definitely something that should be
Right,
taken
right,
into
right,
account
Right.
of what could really be
And
done
for
with that
Hillside
park.
Park, they wanted basketball
Mhm.
court. Well, nobody wanted that near because it would
Oh,
be noisy.
the sound.
And then for Raven Oaks Park, we had a really great turnout because they were afraid we were gonna turn the park into a condominium.
Uh, Okay. Steve, anything else?
No, other than I know that, he talked about, he tried to talk a few people into considering, being on the, as one of the chair, I won't say who the person he talked about was, I said, well, I said, if it were me, I wouldn't do it. He asked me, I said, at this time, at this point, I'm not ready to do that.
We can get you there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, thanks very much. Item 11, well, do we have an item 11?
Yes, we have.
We do, oh.
Oh,
I didn't know you were, okay, sorry. I thought you were just here with Phil and Martin and really into local government.
Well, there's a couple of things, actually,
Oh,
yes,
sorry.
I personally think, I always think it's good to know what's on the minds of the municipalities that we serve, because you guys have your own set of challenges and struggles, and, you know, we often hear from residents that live in the townships about little bits and pieces that are going on in the town, so it's always good to hear. But I also hung around because I knew that item 11 was coming up, and I thought, in case, as you had sat here and, you know, percolated a little in the back of the mind, if you had any other questions about anything related to, you know, the current funding mechanisms, the county grant, anything else that you would like to know as you guys put budget season and have to make decisions, I could at least offer to try and track information down for you or answer it if I could.
We had one question that kind of is more like, we always had this small group that was in the Belleville School District. Rachel, do you know, have you ever been presented with someone that's a Town of Oregon resident, but that's in the Belleville School District that wanted services or was seeking services that you couldn't?
So what had, in 13 years that I've been at the senior center, that situation has happened a couple of times. And what happens is Belleville gets the grant funding for that little area. And it's, I don't know, there's what, maybe 20 houses, 20 to 30 houses, I think, in that little space. And how many of them are occupied by older adults? I don't know. But like we once had somebody who wanted home delivered meals that lived there.
Okay,
And what we did was we called the Belleville Senior Center and said, technically, this person's in your area for delivering meals. Do you have a driver that goes there? Do you object? You know, if we end up serving them, do you have an objection to that? And so, and right now, that's probably been 9 years ago. I don't even remember which way it ended up going, but when we get people on borders, we tend to have those kind of like practical conversations about who does it make the most sense? Does somebody already have a route that's somewhere near there? If it's not our district, we don't want somebody's nose to get bent out of shape because we took their person. Because, you know, those things all figure into the statistics of who's gonna make, you know, the county formula in the future. So just like I would not be very pleased if I found out that, you know, Stoughton was offering services to people in Rutland that we should be offering services to without checking to make sure that was okay. And there are always extenuating circumstances. You may have somebody who lives on that border and their child, adult child lives in Belleville and they want their local to serve, even though they may call us and ask. It may be the family says, no, we live here, we want this here, so.
so that would be Sugar River then? When you
Yes.
say Village of Belleville, that's the Sugar River Center?
Rivers.
Okay, okay. I just wanted to really make it clear where all of our residents are getting services, so we're like, we just know going forward.
Sure,
Okay,
yeah, so if you get a call from somebody,
yeah,
which school
it
district?
could have been any day, I mean,
It
you know,
could.
someone could really need a lot of services. And I wasn't sure if the school district thing, like, it was, and then it wasn't a thing, so. You know, is there anything we could go to the county to say, can you support the Oregon Senior Center more? But I don't know what that dollar amount would be or that we could do. it.
Right, well, yeah, like I said earlier, the best thing you could do if you want to be helpful at the county level is write to your county board supervisor and say, I understand that the county exec is included an extra $237,000 in its budget for the county for case management for older adults. Please keep that in that budget.
Okay, you could definitely get a letter.
So
Okay, thank you. That was,
certainly,
that we lost our
I
captain.
don't know, he might have had a question.
Well, I think he's finding his answer right now.
Well, no, he
It wasn't on
told
his
me.
mind.
He told me
You're in
to
charge.
keep asking.
keep asking questions. So, yeah,
Knock on the door.
so
I think he might be out any minute.
that's okay. With our food program, the caterer was Little John's beginning of the year, and then there was that whole upheaval for a while, and now we have a more stable Atlantis Valley Foods, and people are quite happy with that one.
Yeah.
Who's your current caterer?
Current caterer that the county signed on with is an organization called Atlantis Valley Foods, which is a big catering concern in Cottage Grove. And they do a lot of corporate catering, big events, conventions, but also things like grab a meal out of a vending machine, grab a fresh salad out of your American Family break room. So their food has been very good.
Well, that's good, because that was quite a disruptive
was
beginning
very
to the
disruptive
year,
for-
very difficult.
Yeah, yep. So that is a happier situation all around.
Yeah.
And our Ziggy's meals on Thursdays continue, but all of the meal costs are covered by not us, not any of the municipal contributions, and not that money all goes back to the county because they're the ones that pay for the catering contract. So. And we have to, we're required, the federal government actually requires that those meals be made available on a donation only basis, and that the donation box even has to be in a place where they can donate anonymously. And they can put an empty envelope in if they want, it has to be that way. So, Dina, yeah, the strings that are attached to that money.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll let you continue on. You're in the home stretch now, right?
I hope so. You never know. It's like 5:30, it's like, oh my God.
Not that long ago. I'm so sorry I didn't connect the dots on you being there in this agenda item. being waiting.
And then they came in, so it was
Yeah.
like, didn't really
It didn't get replaced.
in
Yeah.
translation.
Anyway, thank you.
Oh, it's fine, and I just figured if you had anything that came up while you were sitting, going through your rest of your stuff. Over, so go ahead.
Today.
The flavor of today is municipal government. What flavor would that be?
Chunky monkey, I don't know.
Would anybody like me to call an official recess for a couple of minutes?
No.
I think you've already.
Well, I
Recesses are.
the crowd is taken care of.
Thank you, good night.
All right, item number 12, the road and traffic safety.
With Traffic Safety Committee, we have had probably our last official meeting of the year. We have, you had received at the last meeting, the outline of the 5-year plan. We have a budget in, almost done. I just have to get that to you. We'll have it from our budget work session. There, we have, our members are busy filling out the grant application for Judd Road. You have on, oh, now I lost the page.
79.
79. It's a, you have Corey Inman's description that is being put into the grant as to the justification for the for Judd Road. I think that's well done. That's being edited and looked at, will be incorporated in there. They're working on the budgets and hope to have that done this Friday, which is about 2 weeks ahead of the submission date that we have to sent it in. Town of Montrose has to be involved and the form has been sent to the town of Montrose to sign, be back. I still have yet to hear from the Historical Society to see if there's some mounds or burial or school things, but we'll follow through with it. We'll hopefully get that done this week too. So.
I'm just
Jed-
gonna make mention that he stopped in and he said they may do 2 applications. Because Steve and him spoke, Steve, who's also on the committee, and they feel like if they do 2 applications, they might have a better chance. Yeah,
So you mean like Montrose plus us, or do you mean what?
I think applying for, there's a hill, so one's like
Oh.
there's 2 different things they're trying to address.
Okay.
And one's like a hill, and he said unfortunately, it's like there's not enough accidents, which we were just like, how could there not be enough accidents?
And it's
There's
Sun,
just,
Judd Road.
well, Sun Valley Parkway.
Well, that's who.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so
so they were gonna try to approach it from this.
from having 2 grants instead of 1. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, we-
yeah, so
That's
just,
new, that's news to me, that's good to hear. That, you know, we are blessed with these folks that have this experience to be making that kind of recommendation and judgment on there. And we have a second, I guess now a 3rd grant application, which is the LRIP, which is a little more into straight fixing up of a road. And we're looking at putting in the south mile of Union Road, which is from our border, our southern border up to Bellbrook. And that we would have the option to possibly shift that. The other candidate, after we get it, if we get it, this south end of Tipperary. I mean, that's due in December. And Tipperary, that section of Tipperary is not heavily traveled, but it's in much worse shape. So it's the Union Road, we're looking at a mile. Tipperary, we'd be looking at about a mile, 0.6. So that's what's happening there.
And one application can cover either or.
One application can be, we would have the option of switching it, if we get it, we could still have it on Union Road, or we say we have more need on Tipperary, so that's a
Okay.
little different,
Yeah.
but
you
it's,
have one
it's
time
the,
to do that.
One time ever or one time per?
No, just time per award.
Per, okay,
okay, and these are out a couple of years.
right.
The little points of having the, that this has been Judd Road has been used as a bypass or a detour route, for a couple of years for Highway 69. They feel is an advantageous, tidbit. So again, their experience in dealing with grants is helpful. Next year, we will still be looking at continuing the maintenance piece, but not as much as we were this year. Next year is going to be looking at the safety component. We have a lot of blind intersections. We have, so there's just a lot of safety things, and be counting on getting pummeled with things of what are the best kind of painted lines? Do we need painted lines? Do we not need painted lines? Do we, what type and where, as far as a visual, and what's the cost?
That's a good question.
Details. So anyway, the safety will be a push, and we'll probably be having, put in your tickle file that probably May will have a tour of the roads after the spring blow up,
Destruction.
You get destroyed.
blow up and melt down.
Good.
Frost coming out, so that's when we have, so we'll be having probably our first meeting in mid-February, when we're gonna be looking at getting bids for the seal coating for the season.
Sounds great. Questions for Arlen? Anyone? All right, thank you, Arlen. Number 13, is this Jennifer, is this your item as far as the snow plow and equipment person, or is this something?
Oh, yeah, well, Abel didn't get back to me, so we typically have 3 on-call snowplow operators, so we have Abel and Ryan, and we always have another one who's like the main one, that would be Todd Cleaver. And then we've had Chester Ace. Chester has taken a job working for the town of Rutland, so it left one of that extra spot open. And then we have another person that has done it for us, but is also has a full-time job. So we just are going to need to be researching getting another backup.
Do you
So,
typically put an ad?
Two backups?
3. We do 3. Yeah. So right now we have Todd Cleaver, who plowed for the county, plowed for us last year, so he's doing pretty good. So we're looking for another backup, but Abel hasn't got back to me with anyone yet. So unfortunately, the agenda was made up with the intention that hopefully he had gotten back to me with a person that but
Have you
Yeah.
put ads in the paper?
no, we, haven't because we were not. I think that through word of mouth, they were kind of getting someone.
People?
So Chester went to the town of Rutland, Dennis left the town of Rutland. So I thought maybe he's a town of Oregon resident, thought maybe he'd be interested in coming back and snow plowing for us for the winter season, but I'm just not sure yet what Abel's decided, so.
Okay, can I just clarify?
Yeah,
Abel Ryan plus 3 backups, or Abel Ryan and 1 more equals 3?
Abel Ryan
Five.
plus 3 backups.
So-
So
okay.
typically how a snowplow works is we have 3 snowplow trucks. And then we also have the Ford, so the smaller truck that they drive around in. So you have 3 plow trucks and then you have the smaller truck. So you can have 4 people operating at one time. We have a township that has a large amount of cul-de-sacs.
Yeah.
So that small truck can get in there and they can do
Oh,
cul-de-sacs. So really but not a lot of the operators want to use it, so you kind of have to find the right breed that would like to use that smaller truck to get in there and get the cul-de-sac clean, but then that's really helpful for people living in the cul-de-sac and then also the snowplow drivers. So there really can be at one given time 4 trucks out during a snowplow.
Okay,
So
so,
having a grouping of 5
okay,
is.
so hiring, just because it's hiring, does the board need to approve it, or it's just operational, isn't it? So it should be, here's who, like Abel, let's say, or Ryan, or both. Here's who we recommend, here's.
I think as long as like we do a background check on them, we run their driver's license. So I think that as long as they pass the background check, I don't think there's anything that's with you guys that are gonna have to. I think as long as they have the qualifications, and I think Abel's got some, it's a pretty in high demand market. So it's like, it's not really gonna be something, I think we should spend the money on advertising. I think it's something
Well,
where I think if we can find someone that's willing to, do it for us, it's probably kind of a word of mouth. We're on the thing, but like, I know Abel has some connections.
Okay.
And so,
Okay.
it's just that you never know when snow will start to fly. So,
That's why I say
and
with
then,
timing, we could, we'll approve them in November,
Yeah.
and then there's,
We can't get.
2 feet of snow on the ground.
yeah, because I mean, right now, I think we only really kind of have 3 as those, 1 for sure, and so,
Yeah,
okay, just as long as everyone's aware that,
right, and you've got your budget, whatever's available for the budget, that's. in
and
line.
that's always kind of this fluctuating thing, because who knows what the snow's gonna do, so it's always, that is where we might see,
True.
you can save some years and then you might overspend other years, it's
Right.
just sort of the way.
Do you know whatever we typically offer per hour or per, is it?
That
is
last
it-
year, we gave everybody a raise.
Right, but it
Yeah.
was,
It's
it
pretty
was like,
competitive, isn't it?
yeah, we, for our part-time guys, it's 30 something an hour, which is, but that's about the wage you're gonna have to give them, there's no
Right.
benefits attached to that,
Right.
it's a pretty, it's a good wage that we can get someone,
Okay,
but we also don't guarantee a number of hours either, so, we have to be really very competitive so that we can get them on our time when the snow flies.
Okay.
Um,
all right, sounds good. Let's do number 14, building inspection report is on page something, 89, it looks like.
they're putting a swimming pool in that new house on Wesley Road. Where they're taking
Oh,
one
where they
house,
put- where they
you know,
put
it's
them
one
on?
up there, and they're also putting one on Valencia.
Oh.
Getting swimming pools.
Any questions about the building inspection report? No? Number 15, board communication, and just a reminder about some of our upcoming budget meetings. And any questions about those? Everybody's got those?
Next Thursday,
Yep.
5:30 PM here.
Coming up.
Mhm.
And then the item for possible action here is the it's in the packet. Well, okay, here, let me backtrack just a second or two. So in the packet, there are copies of the hefty construction. Don't be confused because there are two of the cover pages. One is the final, the 82,520. And then the previous.
Right.
Think about the yeah, the
84.
so don't get them mixed up. So that was approved. And then it's the furniture and carpet purchases are still pending approval. We just approved the bid, not the other pieces. So you'll find the furniture there or page 95.
Some carpets and those.
Did you want to talk any about the furniture? I think we talked about it before. You know, it's refurbished and
So, yeah, it's refurbished. They must power quote spray the furniture so it all matches. So that's like, it's just a basic color. And then they put this laminate countertop on so that they all match. And then there's not really many upholstery pieces, but then they make the upholstery. So that's pretty basic. Not really much, but that's that. And then the carpet samples. So I think the and okay, so this is the one that's the least expensive. And
Kind of helps to see the picture.
yeah,
better,
that's the picture on the back is actually kind of better if anyone really, I'm not sure how much. So, I mean, and we're fine with this being the least expensive. That was great. This was, I think, the second. I wish I knew how to like. Oh, no, this was the 33. And then this.
Which one's the
must have been- This one must have been the 3,300. This one,
crossing to.
yeah, this one that looks like a lumberjack.
Yep.
This is what the guys told me, lumberjack.
Okay.
And then
There's artesian.
this
And-
is the red, so it goes most expensive, which was actually my favorite, because that would be no surprise. Then this one, the weird thing about this one, which is the middle one, is it's weird because it's like a light dark pattern, so this is the same carpet. And the way they put the squares in are it's like a light dark type thing, so it kind of looks like this in the back. And then there's that over there, which was the most expensive. It's not, I forgot when he gave me the quote and then I didn't update it because it was more expensive than these three and we didn't really like it anyway, so. But it was this one. This one's the most expensive.
That was the most?
Yeah, I know, right? I know, that's the most expensive.
Is there something on these that have their wear, a wear rating?
That's what I was gonna ask.
You're asking a gal who doesn't work in. There, all we know, well, it's made in the US, is I don't know if it has a wear because all we've been told is that these are just these carpet and the whole idea is that if something were to happen to it, you can just pull it up and pop the new one in.
But you know,
I'm not like,
no discussion of, durability or, to distinguish, to justify the changes in price.
no, I would assume it's just. Like just maybe the making of the carpet, like because they're all really very similar. They're all like got the same kind of,
Do people ever mix and match those? Cause they,
like this one does, like,
Yeah.
that one. Does
Yeah.
that look like,
yeah,
I'm not sure what they're doing. Like, it looks like different
it looks
colors.
like you
The-
could really do that.
Yeah,
As far as the wear goes, it's not a very high traffic area,
right.
so I think
Except under the chair.
that's true.
We just want it to be, so that when the guys walk on it, because the guys will come in and they'll have dirt on their feet. We'd like something that would just kind of hide dirt.
We could get a couple, $40 chair mats.
Yeah, we have mats there. They're just.
What is the, from high to low, forget the high one that you don't like. But the high to low of the three other ones, what's the difference?
Good-
Price?
good price.
Yeah.
Check.
Just price. I don't know the difference in I don't know of any difference in like wear or longevity or, what would you say? Would there be a
Price.
warranty?
Well,
Yeah,
so-
it's just, I think it's just price. Yeah,
We got page 97. It's
Yeah.
like a few pages, but, so I think.
I didn't see the other.
The 3310,
the 3310 is the one that looks like a lumberjack, like a plaid shirt.
then you got 2670 and 2575, so.
And the 2575 is the one with that stripe, which we were wondering how they do it, but it
Yeah.
doesn't look so bad when you look at the back of it, because they kind of just sort of like, intermix that stripe in there.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah,
And this
Yeah.
one will show dirt.
yeah, it's a little bit lighter. Yeah, might look dingy. That's what we kind of thought about that one too. Yeah,
Yeah, this one is
Yeah.
fine.
yeah. I
I
mean,
mean, not because it's the cheapest, I can kind of like.
well, it's our first pick too. We didn't have
Yeah.
the prices when
Yeah.
when I was taking pictures of them.
That's the one I like.
Which one is your first pick?
Can you see it on the floor?
The
Oh.
cheap one.
Yeah,
That's nice.
yeah.
I like that one.
So,
This is the 2575, the Raven.
Yeah.
Sounds too much like Raven Oaks.
I mean, does anyone have any non-flooring? I have no experience with them.
What?
With.
Not
Is
non-flooring.
that where it came
No,
from?
yeah.
I think they're.
Yes,
They're good, they've been around.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
they're reputable.
more 360 and then flooring to our whole
Okay.
house 20 years
Well,
ago,
is-
it's the same carpet.
Oh,
If you're,
Times clean. It's 20.
well, whatever it is, did they say in here to be having X number in reserve, for when you replace a couple?
oh, that's close.
By I would
I
imagine.
can ask. I don't know
I
that.
would imagine, or else because you probably buy it by.
They-
one of those over 10.
Yeah,
That was 75. Not all, somebody.
They will never have color match, they will never have.
You know, sometimes you order the same color from another dialogue and it doesn't work.
right.
Yeah, so
Jennifer, did you hear that conversation?
How many extra tiles will we have? Right.
They'll probably suggest,
10%,
I was gonna say 10%, but that's just, I'm pulling
yeah,
out.
that's something to pull out.
Okay,
And then you're gonna have to use up closet space to, and then remember that they're there.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm throwing away.
okay. I can ask. Anything else? Do you want to know? I should know the warranty.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, if we're,
Well,
is there any reason? I mean,
Does one,
we are on the track of getting the lowest bid.
does one clean better than the other? It's like the other carpet. Is this one?
It's underneath in the threshold where we would have
Or
to
we
get a
have to
bid.
take,
So with this dollar amount, we don't have to get it.
No, still, it's a,
Well, it worked out good. We liked the
Well-
least expensive one the best, so.
It's at least expensive anyway, so
I mean, are you asking me to go to another flooring company?
no. No,
The same, I'm sure the same product will be the same price. Wherever we go with the installation of that as a whole.
no.
There are many products that the companies will not allow to have you
Discount.
discount them. Oh, there are many products in the market. Just
Yeah, I just don't know about carpet
We're
squares.
talking about Brahmin handbags.
installation prices and things like that. Handling is another story.
Find out what their recommendation is on the extra. I have just pulled a number of 10% out of my head.
Okay.
I've left my head at home.
And then probably you should wait for that to pull that to do an approval.
Okay,
There's no rush to, well, let me ask you, is there a rush to order?
I can ask them that as well. I can
Yeah,
ask
yeah,
them,
that would
like,
be-
what's the lead time, or how much of a lead time do you need?
Right.
I might have asked them that.
We're meeting next week on the budget.
Oh, yeah, we could always,
If we could,
if we have to go, and then we're meeting.
let's just get it. We should not be pushing anything out any further.
Yeah.
It's already out.
Well, I don't think approving it tonight would be right, we've still got questions. That's my only,
And we need to approve the furniture.
furniture we held up, but I don't think we have questions about the furniture.
No.
So I think the furniture. So any, Jennifer, anything about the furniture? You described a little bit, I think we're good to go.
I think we're fine with the furniture. I don't know of any. She's very, very nice. She's super Rena. I, highly recommend if anyone's looking for someone. It's kind of a cute little place. Yeah. Oh,
And this is Milwaukee?
So they're all over the place. So they source this used furniture from everywhere. And I don't know anything about office furniture, but they do a really nice job. So
No, I think this is a very good and competitive, extremely competitive. And like new stuff, so. I make a motion, we approve the purchase of the office furniture. For $10,995.
Any discussion for anyone? Hearing none, let's vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes. And then Jennifer, number 16 is yours. I'll go to make sure things. Oh, we also said something about in 15, we talked about an update on the town hall remodel project using our funds. Is there this general discussion about that, or I'm not sure, is that future? I'm not sure where it came from.
Well, it came from, we figured we wanted to let the people know now that we've done it, rather than letting them know before we did it.
Oh, okay, so. People.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, we should just say, so the funding for the remodel will come from ARPA funds. And those are a special class of funds that were federally based, it is not from local taxpayer funding. Not directly.
So are we gonna be sending a newsletter about things that you talked about in this, and then when we decide on the senior center? I mean, I think it's.
No.
Yeah, we should do it soon. Really, in the next couple of weeks would be great. Good.
I think Lori and I talked a little bit, the newsletters are difficult only in the sense that you have to find you wish you could find, a format that you could just put all your words into, and it would wordsmith it so that it looked nice, like a really cool newsletter. So we need to find something like that,
I'm
like
sure there are templates.
some kind of template of some sort. When Phil was on the board and he owned Sprint Print, we would go there and they would have this really cool thing where it's like, you would type it and then it would adjust it so your words all fit in the
Well-
box the way that you wanted it to. And
Yeah.
it's like, we don't have that software, but maybe with Publisher or something, it's like a time consuming thing. It's like,
Yes,
it's
yeah.
like anything when you try to format on a page
Right.
that it's.
They're very helpful at the company that took over Minuteman. And I don't think they're that expensive. I think
I
if
think
we
it-
had an
that
idea
can
and
help
what
you
we
quite
could
a
have
lot.
them, we have them printed, they probably do it for nothing.
And so we could look into that, Kate. That might be a good idea to look into, see if they would have someone, because they
Right.
have
They
done that
take
for
the
before.
text and format it for us.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And I don't think this has to be like a 6-page newsletter. It could be one sheet. It really could be one page front. and back.
If it's 7 by 17.
Yeah,
That's
right.
That's all it needs to
Right.
be in the short paragraphs.
Yes.
and-
You kind of like, if you did the back page being like your mailer address, you know, like
Right, right,
if you fold it
Yeah.
like that.
Right.
You could do something, and you want to, of course, have some graphics in there.
Yes.
They're good at that. I mean, they'll do
Yeah.
all that.
And they have done that for us before.
Right.
It's very time consuming for
If some, if we come up with the text.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
But Sharon Christensen volunteered to do that.
Oh, she's muted.
saying something though. You maybe don't want to know. But I'm just saying.
It's good that she's muted.
Oh, we've nominated Sharon as that.
Okay, so anything else on the board communication item? Sounds like no.
Do we need a motion on the ARPA funds?
No. Do we? No.
What I
think we
would
do.
like to do is, once we get all of the costs, like we did for the curbside, I would like to have another resolution
Yes.
for the money. And I would do that once we've got all these costs sort of done.
Sorted out.
Yes, and then I'll have another resolution come before you guys to pass, so that,
That would be one
That's a good
place where all of this stuff is.
yeah,
Is approved in one.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And I think
yeah.
part of I think it's a good idea. I think part of the remodeling approval was the mention of ARPA funds. so.
Yeah.
But I think
Yes,
that
that
was
was-
built into that one,
that's
but
put in the-
possibly not the others. But we may want to get the audio visual one
Yeah.
tucked into that too, because we can't. I don't know what the audio is like now, but.
Can you guys hear us? Has everything been okay, or have we been spotty tonight? Oh, wait, Sharon, wait.
Well, we just need to unmute you.
But,
Sometimes it's spotty and sometimes it isn't.
okay. Is there a pattern of when it is spotty?
No, I don't think so. Although
It seemed like,
earlier-
sorry, Sharon.
earlier it was better than it is right now.
I'm. Hello?
Stephanie?
Yep. Well, now you guys are breaking out, but earlier I heard most everything with the board and then with Martin's thing, and I was popping on and off. And then like when Rachel was talking at the end, like after that had already gotten over, I only heard like every other word. But for the front of the room where you guys are, everything seemed pretty good when I was listening.
Really, because people went off.
Yeah, I think what we're looking at is microphones, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, good with public works. 10/16 and loan updates.
Our loans have all been paid, and I don't, it's late, and I don't know that I really had anything ready to prepare, so once we have something, I'll.
All right, nothing else. All right, number 17, without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you.
That is at 8:22 PM.
Okay.
Bye,
Thank you.
75.
Thank you.